I'm going to mute. Hi and welcome. We are going to transform our lives today with the Seed Meditation Workshop. We are here for 4 hours. We're here from 10 to 12 Pacific time, and then again from 1 to 3 Pacific time. So whatever time zone you're in or whatever time zone you're listening in, I'm really glad you're here. And first I'm going to go ahead and ask you to join me in a mindful moment. I don't know if you know what that is, but a mindful moment is exactly what it sounds like. As you're transitioning from whatever you were doing prior to tuning into this and whatever is coming next, it's really ideal to spend a few moments kind of gathering your mind where your body is, gathering your attention to be right here, right now. So you can do this with your eyes open or closed. Okay, you decide on your safety levels. But you go ahead, if you can, close your eyes and do that, or gaze downward toward the floor. Begin to welcome everything you hear. Notice how you're feeling physically. Notice whatever emotions are present. And putting aside all your responsibilities and to-do lists to be right here, right now. Perhaps you tune into your breath, which is always right here. Letting your breath be natural. And tune into why you're here today. What is it that motivated you to come onto this call and this presentation? Whatever that intention is, just tune into that for a moment. And then go ahead and deepen your breath and open your eyes at your own pace. I'm going to go ahead and begin sharing the screen. Hopefully it will work. Can you see that? Welcome, everyone. I'm so glad you're here. So today we're going to be talking about how to transform your life. I don't know about you, but meditation has transformed my life. And today I was walking along the beach, and I have a bunch of friends who have dogs, and we get up pretty early and we go down on the beach, which is about a 10-minute drive from here. And it's usually pretty foggy, and I saw a sea lion bobbing his head, and I saw my friend out there picking up trash. I do usually Saturdays, he does Sundays. And I saw my friend Tuan with his 2 little dogs, and he goes, and I said, I've got to run because I've got to go teach meditation. He goes, well, this is my Zen, right here on this beach. And I realized that each one of us has a different way to find, as they say in the Buddhist tradition, refuge, to find that Zen. And if you don't know how you find your Zen, hopefully today we'll give you some ways to find your Zen. And this word Zen is simply a word that comes from Buddhism. It used to be in China, it's called Chan. And in Japan, it's called Zen. It's just a simple way of being. And we're going to talk about that today. My name is Sarah McLean. I've been teaching meditation since 1993. I've always been seeking the mysteries and uncovering the mysteries of life. And I was listening to an Eckhart Tolle conversation yesterday, and he goes, I love a good mystery. And I often say that, and I've never heard him say that, but I love a good mystery, and I bet you do too. And, you know, I think when we get to talk about meditation and mindfulness, we're talking about sort of the ephemeral. You can't put your finger on your thoughts. You can't put your finger on your attention. You can't put your finger on your Zen, but they are very real ways of living. And so today, hopefully I'll teach you a little bit about mindfulness and meditation, and we'll have some direct experiences of it. And I'm glad you're here. There are 18 of us on this call today, and we'll get to know who you are and what you're doing here in a little bit. So I know some of you are really excited because you've been teaching this class, and this is our new PowerPoint. So I hope you like it. And so let's see if it works. So we took our mindful moment. Just to talk about that, mindful moments are a great way to gather yourself when you're in transition. Whether someone's coming to your class or you're going to start meditating in a moment, or you're going to sit down to a meal or a meeting, to really be in charge of how you pay attention and taking those opportunities of transition to commit fully to what is going to happen now. So I thank you for your commitment. And so my name's Sarah, I told you, and we have you, if you're just joining us, we'd love to have you say hello in the chat. And we'll get to know who you are later. But as you think about how you might introduce yourself, what would you say? Would you say you're a meditation teacher, you're new to meditation, you're becoming a teacher? Would you say something about where you live, what you're doing here? How would you introduce yourself? I might say, hi, I'm Sarah. I'm sitting here in Santa Barbara. It's a foggy day, and I've been teaching meditation for 30 years. So as we go through this program, we're going to talk a little bit more of other ways you can think about yourself. So if you haven't said hello, I invite you to do that now. I know some of you are used to using these chat buttons. So let's talk about why you're here, why you might meditate, why you might want to learn about it. Now, for me, I really wanted to feel and be in love. I thought somehow meditation would bring me a sense of connection, a sense of being comfortable. I had really serious anxiety. I was depressed. I wasn't able to pay attention. I felt unlovable. I mean, the things that people go through maybe in their 20s, I was going through it full on and having some difficult relationships to prove I didn't have the best self-esteem. And I had very challenging ways of dealing with stress, pulling over and crying if I were driving, or fighting with someone, or withdrawing. And as we get older, I notice when people come to learn to meditate, they're really motivated by some sort of issue in their lives, whether they've gotten a diagnosis, or they realize they're not able to focus on who's in front of them or what they're doing, or they're not able to sleep, or that they are feeling the effects of stress. And if you are navigating COVID and this pandemic, or as my mother calls it, the panorama, and sometimes she calls it the pandemonium. She's 87 in a nursing home and no one's allowed in there. The stress levels are off the charts for many of us. Some of us haven't noticed that much of a change in our daily routine, but we certainly notice that we can't spend time with our loved ones as we want to, or travel if we like to. Others have been directly affected as they're homeschooling their kids, or they're not able to work and they're suddenly in a house full of people that they hadn't planned on. And so right now, people are coming to meditate more than ever because of the challenges that this particular way of life has brought on. So of course, meditation, you've heard and probably seen photos of people with their hands like this and the covers of magazines looking like they're totally peaceful and zenned out. And in fact, it does help you to feel more calm. So we're going to talk about various ways to meditate today, whether you're here to increase your creativity and you're feeling stuck in a rut and you want to change up everything, or if you're feeling the effects of age and you want to reduce whatever that aging process is, or reverse it, as Deepak Chopra, who I worked with for many years, is doing right now. He's in his 70s and he's like, I am 42, and he is doing everything he can to reverse his age. And you can really see it if you've tuned into any of his free podcasts. Maybe you want to understand your emotions more. Maybe you're tired of just limiting your emotional bandwidth to mad, glad, or sad. Maybe you want to get more aware of the nuances, or maybe you want to feel that connection to everyone and everything. We've had athletes here, have had professional golfers and basketball players come to learn to meditate because they want to increase their performance and get in the flow. And some people just know that they need to get rid of stress overall. They're tired of going to the doctor and putting a Band-Aid on the stress with pharmaceuticals. Not that pharmaceuticals aren't great when they're needed, but maybe we want to get to the causes rather than the effects of stress. So what is meditation? How would you define it? Without looking at this PowerPoint, how would you define it? Well, I often say it's two things. We think we know what it is, but what is it really? So meditation refers to two things. It refers to a state of mind. It's actually a state of awareness. Like when you're sleeping, that's a state of awareness. When you're dreaming, that's a state of awareness. When you're awake, like you are probably right now, that's a state of awareness. When you're meditating, that's a different state of awareness, just as different as being awake is from sleeping, just as different as sleeping is from dreaming. Meditation is a state of awareness that you get into because of the practice. We'll talk about that a little bit later. It is also a practice. It's a modern and ancient technique and practice. And there are all kinds of ways to meditate. And I bet you, and you could go ahead now if you want to, and type in some of the ways that you meditate in the chat box. What ways do you meditate? What kinds of meditations are you familiar with, or that you practice if you do, or that you want to learn? Because there's so many ways to meditate, whether they're current day practices such as mindfulness or breath awareness or walking meditations, or whether they're ancient meditations like mantra practices or zazen or vipassana or contemplative prayer. There are so many ways to meditate. So meditation is a practice, but it's also a state of consciousness, a state of awareness, and it has a very different markers than maybe others. So some people would say that meditation has its origins in the yoga tradition. Now, you may think of yoga these days, and I know some of you practice yoga, as a way of yoking your attention to your body. As you move the body, doing the asanas, you become more self-aware. You become more aware of your dialogue with your body. You become more aware of how the body moves and the sensations in the body. Well, if you could expand that awareness to recognizing that meditation is a yoking, or yoga is a yoking, not only of your attention to your body, but to your mind and to your emotions and to your environment and to your relationships. So the word yoga comes from the word yug, which means to yoke. And so that's what meditation is. It is one of the practices of yoga, yoking your attention to that which is looking through your eyes. So what it is not, I don't know about you, but I used to believe that meditation would clear my mind and control my mind. And I don't know about you, but my mind has got its own journey going on. Sometimes I think that I'm being thought rather than choosing what I'm thinking, although I do at this point know I can pay attention on purpose. But it's not just controlling or clearing the mind. It's not about concentrating, although it will give you more abilities to focus. It's not religious, though I do it every day religiously, like I brush my teeth every day religiously. However, if you happen to be, a practitioner of a various particular religion, meditation will help you feel closer to God, the divine, to your congregation, to the knowledge. It will help you in that way, but it is not a religion, and it doesn't put you into a trance. Though some people say with meditation that it makes them feel like they've been a little hypnotized. The thing is with meditation is you're in charge of your own awareness, and you can come out of it at any time. And the difference between hypnosis and meditation is hypnosis quite often has an end goal. You're watching yourself as you have particular behavior or reaction. With meditation, we're not that concerned with what's going on in there. We almost surrender to the practice and let it do its work. And it's not a great way to escape problems, although I know some of us come to meditation to escape our problems. What we end up doing is meeting them face to face. It may not be right away, but we will eventually have a new perspective on the way we choose to live and maybe what we choose to do. And it is not only for some of us. Meditation is everybody's birthright. Everybody can meditate. And I haven't met anyone who can't, though I have met people who will not. And it's not magic, although I like to think of it as magic, because it's changed my life in ways that I don't recognize what I was like. Well, it's been many years, 30 years, but I don't recognize that fear, that anxiety, that lack of self-confidence, that lack of feeling connected. I don't recognize that in my being anymore. So it could be magic, maybe. How about for you? Do you feel like it's magic? So if there's a reason that you are meditating that is not on that list, or if there's a misconception about the meditation that you have, I'd love to address it. I'm going to keep an eye on the chat here. And let me just check in with it right now. I'm so glad you're here. All right. Look at all you yummy people from New Zealand and Calgary and Scottsdale and Texas. So great to see you. And Hawaii, I know it's early there. Hi, Casey. And Audra's in Arizona, yay. All the beautiful souls. It's so good to see you. San Diego, Phoenix, Connecticut. Mantra practice, we'll be learning that today. And we'll be learning mindfulness practices. I'll talk to you a little bit more about that. And I will mention Yoga Nidra today. It's not something we'll learn, but it's certainly something we can talk about because I see a few of you are interested in that. Loving kindness, the same thing. It's not something we're going to learn today, but I can certainly mention it. And I don't know if any of you know this, but some of the teachers that have gone through the McLean Meditation Institute's Academy are leading meditations every morning. And if you're one of those teachers and you want to put your information in the chat, you can do that. Also, I'm leading them on Tuesdays and Thursdays at 8 a.m. Pacific time, which I don't know what time that is for New Zealand, but it's probably, I don't know if you're even awake. But I know, and in Hawaii, you're sleeping. I know that. But I know Europeans are able to join us, and they're recorded. So they're on the YouTube. And often we will be addressing loving kindness practices, chakra meditation, some things you may not be learning today, and walking meditations. Okay, so look at some of these misconceptions of meditation. And has anyone, does anyone still have them? I can't stop thinking, so I can't do it. I'll have to work really hard in order to do it. I'm so busy, I don't have the time to do it. I know many of us feel that way. It'll make me too relaxed to be competitive. I totally have heard that with the athletes I've trained, and they find that's not true. You have to change their religion, and maybe it's the devil's work. It's for weirdos, and I say there are weirdos everywhere, not just in meditation, but you can probably look around in your neighborhood or in your family and find a few. And it's not just about, having otherworldly experiences. Though meditation can open up your awareness to feel more connected maybe to a tree or a person or a plant, or it's not otherworldly. It's really helping you to be really present in this world. And I think that's one of the benefits I prefer. Let's see here. Well, let's talk about mindfulness. Is that the same thing as meditation? Well, let me give you an example or a definition from John Kabat-Zinn, who has founded the mindfulness-based stress reduction. He's a PhD at University of Massachusetts, where I went to school. And though we didn't know each other, it's interesting, we're on a very similar track, although he's an academic. And he really studies mindfulness and puts it all together as a practice. Now, mindfulness is a practice. It's a particular way of paying attention. Deliberate way of paying attention. Being mindful means paying attention on purpose, with your attention in the moment. And I consider it a bare attention. He says without judgment, but imagine an attention without an overlay of criticism or comparison, of judging, or making a particular label on someone or something. So mindfulness is a way of paying attention. And it's something that is both a benefit of a meditation practice and a way of living, as well as it's a particular formal practice that you can cultivate this way of paying attention. And we're going to learn a couple of mindfulness practices today. But in general, you don't have to practice meditation in order to be mindful. I hear stories of, grandmothers and grandfathers and people in people's families who really are mindful about the way they cook or walk or garden. It's a particular way of paying attention which is undisturbed and undistracted and very focused and very connected. And I'm sure you've been mindful, and I'm sure you've been mindless. So we've talked a little bit about the benefits of meditation and mindfulness. I'm just going to scroll through these. And if there's anything you want, just let yourself want or acknowledge that's what you desire. First, I want to talk about how they accrue. They accrue from your very first experience, though you may not notice them right off the bat. It's like diving into a pool. You come out of that pool wet with the water from the pool, and then it dries. And then you dive into the pool, and then you come out wet with the water from the pool, and then it dries. But eventually, you spend enough time in that pool that you're very familiar with the benefits, and they are infused in your nervous system. So everybody's experience is unique. And if you've already been meditating a while, I'd love to invite you to go ahead and tell me what your benefits have been, if you can even identify them. We'll go through this list in a minute of physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual benefits. But I'd love to hear, maybe what you're looking for, or maybe what you found. And one thing, some people notice it from their very first meditation, where they suddenly feel like the angels are singing, the birds are singing for them, everything's clear, and you feel more alive and alert. That certainly was true for the very first meditation for me. And then it got to be a bumpy road as I started waking up to the choices I've made and the way I lived. And it's not uncommon for people to go, gosh, there's something radiant about you. Your eyes are sparkly, or you don't seem so reactive. So some people may notice this before you do, because you're living in there and everything seems the same sometimes. And they're not necessarily experienced. The benefits aren't necessarily experienced in meditation. Like you might have tons of thoughts in meditation, unable to focus, or feel really anxious or bored or antsy or mad. But you come out of that meditation and you notice somehow that the benefits are there. It all just kind of gets washed out in the wash there of meditation. So let's see here. This is one of my favorite benefits of meditation, is it increases self-awareness. So you become more aware of how you feel, what you're paying attention to, and your whole entire inner landscape, your reactions, your responses, your desires, your emotional body, your physical body, everything that matters in there. And why is that? Because your attention is moving inward. So you get to recognize your credo, you get to recognize your beliefs and your values. You begin to understand what you really want and what matters to you most. And maybe you wake up to the fact that you want to spend more time with some people and don't want to spend more time with others. Or maybe you recognize that your intentions are really important to you. Maybe the intention to be kind or present for your family, or compassionate with people you don't understand, or patient. Who knows? It's up to you, but it does help you to become much more aware of your operating system, what it is that gets you out of bed in the morning. It also creates more neuroplasticity. One of the best benefits, you know what that is. I know many of you who are teachers. Neuro refers to your nervous system, which includes, your spinal cord, your brain, and the peripheral nervous system. And and plasticity relates to flexibility. You think about plastic. So meditation and mindfulness decrease the gray matter of the amygdala, that part of the brain, you might have heard of amygdala hijack, that makes everything dramatic and scary. It decreases the gray matter, which sounds terrible, but it's not, because it increases the gray matter of parts of the brain that are very, very important. The density of the hippocampus, which is, I like to think of it as your cache when you're, online and you're putting in your passwords and doing your searches. The hippocampus stores that information. And if it's important, most of it isn't, but some of it is, it moves it into the long-term storage. And that's what this does, is the practice of mindfulness and meditation increase the hippocampus that's in charge of learning and memory. And so while your reactivity center is decreasing, it never completely goes away. You do want an amygdala because you don't want to be fearless completely. You want to be afraid of certain things so you don't do crazy things like enter a highway without looking, or jumping off a cliff without a parachute. Some of those, you want the amygdala to keep you in line, but you don't want it to make everything scary about your life. And then you want the hippocampus to be online and engaged so you can learn new things. And then you know that story, you can't teach an old dog new tricks. Well, you can if you have an active hippocampus. And increasing the folds of the insula, which is the part of the brain responsible for recognizing emotions in yourself as well as others. And you want that. You want to be tuned in. You don't want to offend as you're walking around. You want to be engaged and present and understand your own internal experience. So you become less reactive, more responsive. You can learn new things. You can become more self-aware, emotionally fluent. That is a challenge for me because I was so scared as a kid. Emotions were just mad, sad, or glad, or scared to death. And so I noticed with meditation, I'm much more nuanced when it comes to emotions. And it helps you to come back to center. You're probably too young to remember those Weebles that wobble. There were these little toys that would wobble, but they wouldn't fall down. With meditation, you don't fall down. You can have all kinds of experiences, but you can find your center point of peace relatively quickly, even if you've been really disturbed. And so that's what I love. And it increases your optimism, which is really good for your nervous system and your immune system, because your body is constantly overhearing your thoughts. So I was having a conversation with someone yesterday. Years ago, I recognized something about myself that I was embarrassed by. I recognized that I complained a lot. I don't know where I started that, but somehow I thought it was making conversation, just complaining about the weather, about noise, about people, about trash, about behaviors. And suddenly I recognized I was not having a good time doing that, even though in my mind I was making conversation, but oh, please. So I learned to knock it off and to look for things to be happy about. And it was a subtle shift, but it made a whole difference in my body, because instead of listening to that constant complaining that I was doing, my body was now listening to how I appreciated the wonder and beauty of this life. Okay, so here are some benefits. I'm going to let you take a look at some of those. And while you look at those, which one do you want, or which ones do you have? And I'm going to take a look at what you've been writing about. And for those of you who are teachers here, you're getting this PowerPoint, just so you know. Clearer sight and clearer sigh, haha. Nancy, more self-aware, okay, Shona, focused, satisfied. I love that. Who was, Dan Siegel was doing a meditation. Was it Dan Siegel? No. It was another great mindfulness teacher. I'll have to think of his name in a minute, but he was doing a program on contentment this past Wednesday, which I can put a link to in the teacher training page. But here are the physical benefits. It reduces inflammation. You know, one thing when we have a lot of stress in the nervous system, the body responds by getting inflamed. And that can affect your joints. It can affect your heart and your lungs and your belly. It can affect every part of you. Also, stress can reduce the immune system, but what we're noticing now is it increases the T cells, those killer T cells, which sound horrible, but they're the ones that are intelligent, that fight off diseases. And it reduces chronic physical conditions, which who doesn't want that? So those are some of the physical benefits. Here are some of the mental benefits. That it increases fluid intelligence, that's IQ, but what else it increases is emotional intelligence, which we'll get to the next page, EQ. It reduces anxiety and reactivity and increases creative thinking, which is fun. We teach a mindfulness at work program and really lean on some mindfulness practices we'll talk about a little bit later that help to enhance your creative thinking. All right. And also, here we go. Did I spell that right? Yes. It renews your enthusiasm and creativity and creates a positive outlook. How about some of these? Which one do you want? I love that. Thanks, Holly. And spiritual benefits. It deepens one's faith in themselves or in God or in the benevolence of life. Enlivens the qualities of your heart. We're going to learn a heart-centered meditation that helps to enliven that. It also helps you to tap into your inner wisdom so that you know what's yum and what's yuck, what's good for you and what's toxic, and you listen to it. It also increases your awareness of synchronicities and that interconnectedness where you see one thing, as John Muir, the famous explorer, he said, when you look at one thing, you'll recognize it's connected with everything else. You start to look a little deeper than the labels that you've chosen for tree and bird and house and car and person, Republican and Democrat, whatever it may be. You look deeper. You look deeper and see how we're all alike and we're all connected by the same elemental forces. And it increases the compassion toward yourself and others, which self-compassion is, that's the prize. So one of the greatest benefits of meditation is it helps you become more aware of who you are and what you want. We talked a little bit about that earlier, and how you feel. But now I want to suggest that we ask ourselves another question. I'm going to invite you to close your eyes if you want to, and ask yourself the question, who am I really? Who am I really? Turn your attention to that presence that's listening through your ears or looking through your eyes or living through this body of yours. Beyond your roles and responsibilities, there's this presence there that's been with you since you can remember, since you were born anyway. And though the body changes and the jobs change and your hair color changes and your age changes and your address changes, your friends come and go, there's one part of you that does not change. So this you has been with you since you can remember. And who are you anyway? Who are you? Sometimes this question elicits silence. Sometimes it helps you to become a little more aware of this part of you that is the witness to your life, is the observer of your choices, is the soul that underlies all the change. So what are the qualities of this presence of yours? Perhaps you tune into that heart center, that center point of view, and you ask yourself, who am I really? Perhaps the answer is informed by some of those qualities of the heart. So I'm going to invite you to be brave and answer this question. And if you don't know how to answer this question, I invite you to think about someone you admire. Someone you admire, and usually you admire them because of the qualities of their heart, not because of what they've accomplished, but because of why they've accomplished it. Perhaps they're courageous or compassionate or generous or funny or curious. So see if you can identify a few of the qualities of your heart that may be similar to their hearts. And I invite you in the chat at some point, when you feel ready to do this, to share, I am. It may go something like this. I am kind. I am generous. And I am curious. If this is hard for you, you can obviously not do it, but I invite those of you who are interested in sharing that. I'd love to see who you really are beyond your roles and relationships and responsibilities. but who you are. So I invite you to put it in the chat if you want to open your eyes, if you haven't already. And I know it can feel egoic and it can be embarrassing, but I also know that many of us have not claimed the good stuff. We're really ready to claim some of our faults, like, oh, I'm so anxious, or I don't do it right, or I can't do it well, or they're better than I am. But let's see what happens when you just claim a good thing. Meditation helps you to recognize that and let you be okay with that as you recognize the human condition and let yourself be present with, your humanity and the good stuff, which includes the good stuff for sure. So I think we did that there. Yes. This remembering who you are, at least for me, is one of the reasons why people meditate. It was for me. And as your roles and responsibilities come and go, who you truly are remains empowered and enlivened, and much more of what you're yoking your attention to, rather than your accomplishments and your accolades and your numbers and your letters. You can yoke your attention to that real part of you. And you gain that new internal reference point. Some of you have read my book, Soul Center. That's the internal reference point. That's center point. And for those of us who are codependent or recovering codependents, where we place our value or our worth or our self-worth on our accomplishments or who loves us and who doesn't and what they think of me and what they don't. For those of us who are moving away from that and changing that center point to that part of you that knows that you are love, that knows that you are good, that knows that you are kind, and that sometimes who you are can get masked by the ever-changing landscape of pandemics and job changes and relationship changes and weather changes and money changes. There's that part of you that watches it all going on. So you gain this internal reference point, and meditation and mindfulness will reduce the stress so you can be even more aware of that beautiful, kind presence that you are. And it won't get in your way of seeing the world or seeing yourself clearly, the stress. So I'm seeing some yummy things in the chat, and I'll read a few for those of you who are watching this recording. I'm just going to read them out loud and not say who they're from because it's so beautiful. I am joy. I am compassionate, caring, stable, and expansive. I am pure consciousness and awareness. I am brave. I am loving. I am a good friend. I am gentle. I am love. I am desirous of peace and happiness for all. I am love and curious. Love. I am loving. I'm authentic. I'm vulnerable while being strong and brave. I am brave. I am curious. I am thoughtful. I am loving. Aren't you in good company? I'm fiercely passionate, have a compassionate heart, empathetic, and a desire to, it's going off my page, serve the divine. I'm authentic, I'm kind, I'm compassionate, loving, generous, thoughtful, courageous, a lifelong personal growth journey. I'm contented and happy where and how I am. I'm truly authentic and filled with wanting to be part of the solution to a kinder, better world while being self-aware of who I am. I'm compassionate and peaceful. I love that you're claiming this. These are great affirmations. And whenever you notice that you've forgotten who you are, or stress has kind of clouded your ability to see yourself clearly, really coming home to yourself. This is the best benefit of meditation, I believe. However, and I hate to talk about this, but we're going to talk about stress. Some people are meditating here today and in general because they want to avoid their newspaper catching on fire. I'm just kidding. Their life catching on fire, their whole world catching on fire. And maybe you're here because of that. So we're going to explore stress now. We talked a little bit about the stress response, how the amygdala is constantly looking at your thoughts and paying attention to your thoughts to see what's threatening and what's not, whether someone disagrees with you or you're late, you don't have enough money in the bank, or someone's fighting with you. So we have a central nervous system. We talked about the nervous system, and there are two ways it operates. There's the autonomic nervous system, keeping your heart beating, your blood flowing. It's basically doing it without you thinking, you're breathing. And that's the area responsible for your stress response. It's automatic. It's automatic like your heartbeat, though we do have some influence on it, and we could talk about that. It's gotten a bad reputation because, it's sometimes overactive, like I talked about the amygdala hijack. But it is potentially life-saving. It is potentially going to save you from bleeding to death. It's going to help you run faster. It's going to help you become sharper with your senses. It's going to give you the energy you need to fight or flee if that becomes something you need to do. So the nervous system response is called it's called fight, flight, freeze. It's also hyperarousal. There are other F words for it. And it's really a response to address and these are the birds that are over where I am. These are egrets. I've never seen them do this. But anything that's perceived as a harmful thing, your fight or flight response will take care of you. It shunts the blood into your heart and lungs so you can breathe faster, and sends the blood pressure up so it can shoot the oxygen into your lungs, into your arms and legs. It increases your cortisol, so your platelets get more sticky. It increases your adrenaline. It makes you sweat, changes your blood flow, everything that was digesting your food, the blood, the intelligence in your digestive system and in your procreation system. All of that is shunted into the essential workers, the legs, the arms, the immune system, the brain, the senses, so you can fight or flee. So the non-essential workers, they have a day off. And however, though, it can really affect things over time. Let's take a look at some of this. Your heart beats faster, your cortisol's increase, your muscles become tighter, platelets become stickier. You want that, so you don't bleed to death. And you stay cool, so you become more alert. This is great, unless, of course, the threat is imagined or replayed in your head over and over and over again. So any stressful situation can trigger the stress response: physical, environmental, emotional. Like I say, your thoughts. You can even watch a scary movie or read a scary book or replay a scary event over and over again. And the problem is when the nervous system starts to become hyper-aroused, hyper-activated, and doesn't know how to turn off. And that's where the problem lies. And a lot of us have that. As a younger person, whether you're in your 20s or maybe even your early 30s, and you're drinking your Red Bull and having your coffee and working all hours of the night, not sleeping, somehow the body manages it. But over time, the long-term effects of the stress is what can cause the breakdown of the body, the physical breakdown. So here's what we talked about, the amygdala hijack. It's a hair trigger, I think of it that way, and disproportionate response to stimulus. And like we said, it's the one-trick pony, the amygdala. No matter what the situation is perceived, is perceived to be threatening, it treats it as if it were potentially physical, like a traffic jam or an argument. It's not a physical threat, but the one-trick pony thinks it is. In his case, he probably coded something wrong, so, or maybe in your case, you coded something wrong, or you got to fight with somebody at home or at work. This one-trick pony just wants to prepare you to fight or flee, and it's not allowing the emotional bandwidth to take place, to be engaged. So your stress accumulation, it can accumulate without you even noticing, like dust on a table. And many of you have heard me talk about that. As from sitting here meditating, and you too, your senses become sharpened, and you can notice the dust floating in the air as you open your eyes after a nice meditation. And inevitably it lands on something. In my case, my glass table, which I just recently got rid of, but it used to land on there and you don't notice it at first. You probably have a glass table at your house and you don't notice it at first. And then over time, the stress, the dust starts to accumulate. And in the case of the glass table, it starts to shroud its nature. The glass table is still a glass table, just like you are compassionate and loving and kind, self-aware and generous, brave and curious. That's your true nature. And just like the glass table's true nature gets shrouded by this dust, eventually you can't see through it. It's not reflective, and it changes its nature a little bit to the eye. You can write your name in it. Its nature is still there. And the same thing for you in stress. Your nature is still there, but the accumulation keeps you from seeing it and acknowledging it and living with that. And it's accumulated by not dusting the table. It's accumulated by some of the behaviors we take on to manage stress, such as grinning and bearing it, pretending it's not there, not feeling your feelings, not saying what you mean, all of these things. And you just start to repress the way that the stress hormones naturally get released. You're not going to fight or flee in the middle of a meditation class, or maybe with a discussion with someone on Facebook. I mean, it might happen, but you're probably not going to do it. So you don't let them see you sweat. You grin and you bear it. You just freeze. And what happens is you don't address the stress hormones and they start to accumulate. So what are some of the ways that you can deal with stress and actually discharge the stress hormones? We're going to talk about that in a minute, but I want to share what happens when stress accumulates. It changes the way we see ourselves in the world, right? Everybody's the enemy. And as Einstein once asked, the most important question that people have to face is the world a friendly place? He might have been talking about the galaxy or the universe and the various black holes and the way in which physics addresses things. But I take it to look at, with our shrouded way of seeing things, with the stress accumulating, we may see the world as a little bit less than friendly. And right now, I notice it even in myself. Whether you're on the side of masks or no masks, whether you're in the side of vaccines or no vaccines, whether you're in the side of Republicans or Democrats in America, or whether you're in the side of any of that, you could start to view the world as a place full of enemies. And that's what happens when your true nature is covered or veiled with stress. So it's really, I think, each one of our responsibilities to address the stress, say what we mean kindly, mean what we say, feel our feelings, speak our truth in a kind and gentle manner, so that world becomes a more friendly place for you and for everyone in it. So how do you address that accumulation? The rest and digest response, the absolute opposite of the fight or flight response. It's the parasympathetic response. And for you teachers out there, P for parasympathetic means S. For sympathetic, the fight or flight response means stress. So the parasympathetic response is activated when you're in a relaxed state, when you're sleeping, when you're meditating, maybe when you're gardening, or when you're making music or writing in your journal. Some of you love to feel peaceful. You work and it feels peaceful. So whatever it may be, problem solving might be peaceful, coding. So this response allows your body to function optimally. It allows you to operate at its optimum without activating the amygdala. So you're smooth sailing, your responses are not overactivated, you're thoughtful, you're emotionally aware. So how do you create that? How do you create this? This is some of the ways that the rest and digest response affects the body. It increases your feel-good hormones, and the stress hormones are decreased. Your fertility, the non-essentials according to the stress response are back in action. You can digest your food, you can be present to allergens in the environment without your immune system losing it. You can sleep well, you can have children, go to the bathroom, all the stuff that you put off when you're in the fight or flight gets back online. And it increases your youth hormone. Your immune system strengthens. What else? So how do you create that? I always think of you, Pauline, when you talk about creating a scale where the stressors are just You have to increase the pleasant experiences, the relaxation experiences, in order to deal with how much stress you have. So the more weight on the stress level of the scale, the more you have to increase your rest and digest response, whether it's naps or going offline and coloring or gardening or going for a walk in nature. Balancing it. Balancing. What do you do that creates the rest and digest response? I'd love to hear what you do besides meditate. What do you do? What helps you to feel back in balance? If you want to put it in the chat, I would love to hear from you. Making nourishing choices. That's essential. When you're not in the fight or flight response, you can see the big picture. Life is happening for you rather than to you. And you reduce the toxicity and the negativity because you know you should. That's that scale. You seek out people who care about you and spend less time with people who are negative or fighting or argumentative or nasty. And you find ways to be your own best friend. And what are those ways? What do? Walk in nature, me too. Go hiking, go to the ocean, yes. Cuddle with your dogs, a great way. Journaling's a great way. Yeah. Exercising outside, yeah. It's hard to do. Bubble bath, yummy. Listen to music. I like to turn on the music and dance. I have 5 different soundtracks I use. Love that. Sing out loud in the car. Okay. See what else is next. What is the number one way your body releases stress? I'm going to tell you, it's sleep. I know most of you know that. That is the way your body naturally balances its hormones again. So sleep is essential for that. Sleep is also the way your body gets rid of toxicity and digests the good experience as well as eliminates the toxicity from the bad experiences. Sleep is the number one way your body reduces inflammation and gets back to, as much as it can, balance. Exercise is a great way. And of course, meditation and living mindfully is a great way that your body recovers from stress. There are all kinds of other ways. I know you've already put some of them in the chat. Music and mindful and heartful eating. That's so sweet. Thank you, Holly. Meditation. Exercise is a great way to discharge those hormones, right? When you're in the fight or flight response, instead of freezing, walk them out. Jumping jacks. Doing something for a couple of minutes just to shake it out. There's even a great shaking meditation. It's called the dynamic meditation. You can just shake out all the stress, because what happens if you don't? Sometimes you end up with some sort of shaking that occurs because the body doesn't literally discharge the hormones. People with a restless leg, if any of you have those, sometimes it can be hard to meditate with that. But what's happening is, as the mind settles down and the body settles down, and you get back to balance, the body will take its opportunity to get rid of any excess energy, hormones, will bring everything into balance. And you may find in the middle of your meditation, and we'll talk about this later, that you start to twitch, or you have restless leg and it starts to get overactivated, or you have Parkinson's and that starts to happen, or you may notice that your heart skips a beat, or something happens, you start to sweat. So all kinds of things happen in meditation because the body's discharging what's not needed, discharging the energy and coming back into balance. So here's some other ways. I know some of you put these in the chats. It's really important to live mindfully. Mindfulness, as we said, means paying attention on purpose to what's going on with non-judgmental attention. Some of us, because we're moving so fast and we're living at high speeds, or we're living with a lot of stress, is we are not present for the person in front of you or this moment at hand. There's an old Zen, or actually it's a Buddhist saying that says, the most important moment is now, and the most important moment, or the most important person, is the one in front of you. Now look at all those beautiful faces on the screen. This moment, this is it. And what happens for many of us is our body is here, our mind is here. Our body's here, our breath is here, our life is here, and our mind is traveling. So living mindfully is a way of constantly processing what is happening in the moment so that you don't have to deal with it later as it sneaks up on you and taps you on the shoulder and comes out when someone cuts you off in traffic or says something that triggers you, because you've already dealt with it. Becoming more self-aware is a great way to reduce stress or prevent it. Saying yes when you mean yes and no when you mean no, an excellent way to reduce and prevent stress from building up. How many times have you said yes and meant no? How many times have you said no and meant yes? This is a fundamental way of being in alignment. Having integrity is a great way to get rid of stress or prevent it. And don't engage in drama. That's a great one. Walk away or do something that doesn't engage the drama. And use breath exercises to change your breath. We're going to learn some in a moment. So you change the body's response and use the peace finder practices, which we're going to use in a minute too. So let's do a long, slow, deep breath, shall we? I invite you, if you will, close your eyes and inhale slowly, ideally through your nose. And do this at your own pace, holding your breath in for a second, but exhaling slowly and fully through your nose and holding the breath out for a little longer than the inhale. Keep the length of the inhale and the exhale the same, but never force an inhale or an exhale. So breathing in slowly and deeply and holding just for a second, exhaling and then holding out for a little bit longer. You might even notice the way you bring the breath into the belly, as the belly extends on the inhale, and as you exhale, bringing the belly button back to as far back as you can toward the spine. Long, slow, deep breaths through the nose at your own pace. And then letting your breath return to its natural rhythm and depth. Long, slow, deep breaths. They work because when we are stressed out, we can hold the breath. We don't even know we're doing it. We can also just breathe from the chest up, and we can breathe through the mouth. Like when you're driving and someone cuts in front of you, you go, and then hold the breath in. So this exhaling out and holding it a little longer helps to counterbalance that fight or flight response. And then here's some peace finder practices, because we can't always meditate when we're stressed. And so here are a few, and I'm going to guide you through these, invite you to follow along if you like. And you can do them with your eyes open or closed, but the first one is to close your eyes. If you want to do that, you may. And again, feel your breath, this time not changing it, just noticing it. Because even if you're in the midst of some drama, your breath is always here for you. Now you might invite counting. Breathing in, count 1, out, count 2. Going all the way to 10. It's okay if you lose track. Let's do a 10-second body scan. This is a mindfulness practice. Closing your eyes. And scanning your body. Seeing if you can do it without a lot of judgment. Saying hello to your beautiful face. Saying hello as you lower your shoulders. Paying attention to that belly as you soften it. Feeling the support underneath your rear. Feeling your feet on the floor. These peace finder practices can be done individually at any time when you're noticing the shoulders creeping up against your ears, or you're noticing your belly tight, or your breath being shallow through your mouth. You can invite this. You can also say a prayer or an affirmation. I invite you to do that now, maybe using one of the ones you put in the chat. And now I invite you to find 5 things to be grateful for. Using your 5 fingers, identifying something maybe in your environment or in your family or something even about yourself. Another way to be more present and less stressed is to slow everything down. Whether you're talking, whether you're walking, whether you're driving, whether you're listening, whether you're eating, is to slow it all down. That's a peace finder practice too. When you notice that fight or flight's kicking in, you can pay attention to your senses as well. So in eyes open or closed, you can begin now once again to listen to the sounds in the environment. Without any judgment, listen to the sounds of the sounds. Notice sounds that are far and near. And now tune in to what you see. Whether your eyes are closed or open, you might notice the light coming through your eyelids. And if your eyes are open, maybe you notice the space between things, or the shapes of items around you without any labels. Maybe you can now tune into sensation. Perhaps you notice the clothing on your skin, or the way the breath enters and leaves your body. Perhaps you notice a flavor in your mouth, or an aroma in your environment. The senses are always right here, right now. Quite often when we're stressed out, we move our attention outside of ourselves to another person, another time or place, being afraid of the future, or upset about the past. And coming home to this moment is a beautiful way to find some peace. Here's a couple of others. One is to identify one good thing. Just one, right now. One good thing. Maybe you smile to yourself. And even if you don't feel like smiling, it actually increases some endorphins. Don't do this now, although you can if you need to have a bio break. But you excuse yourself and say, I need to deal with something else, a project I'm working on. And that project could be your personal peace. And on your way out to the restroom or to wherever you're going to excuse yourself, you can compliment someone. Maybe you say, gosh, I love the way you're bright eyes today, or thanks for doing that project with me, or whatever comes to your mind. So peace finder practices are a great way for pattern interrupt, where you need to change the story or the loop that you're in. And so you can use those anytime, anywhere, and no one has to know that you're doing it. But of course, we're here to talk about meditation and mindfulness. So let's talk about that. So there are 3 ingredients to almost every meditation. One is your willingness to do it. And you're here, so I assume that's going on. Your resolve to stay with the practice. Your resolve to do the practice and stay with it. And we talked about in the beginning what your intention is for being here. Of course, it only works if you do it. So then the second ingredient is that mindful attention we were talking about, that unencumbered, bare attention. Now, some people think you need to concentrate really hard in meditation, but it's not like that. Instead, your attention should have a bare awareness. Now, one way to recognize the type of attention you need that you could use is right now, notice what you hear. Once again, turning your attention to sounds in the environment, maybe the ones that are coming and going. Now notice what you see. If you have a window nearby, maybe looking out the window and noticing stillness and movement. Now notice what you feel. Perhaps you feel your hands or your feet. So this illustrates the ease in which you pay attention. I hope it was easy for you to listen, to see, and to feel. It's not dramatic. And with meditation, we don't need some sort of drama with our ability to pay attention. So your attention is like that. It's an observing attention. And you just do it without a lot of judgment, without a lot of drama. And of course, with meditation, you need an object to focus on. Now, every meditation is different, and sometimes you can have 1, 2, or 3, or 0 objects to focus on. But most meditations require you, the subject, and that which you pay attention to, an object. And they can be physical sensations, feelings, something you see, or something you hear, just like what we did there. So, for instance, some of you posted some meditations earlier. And let me see if we're going to go through this. Yeah, I want to talk about some of those in a minute. But I want to say that some people don't have to use number 3, an object for focus. Some people use just the first 2, the willingness to do it and their gentle attention. And it's called an open awareness practice when you don't have an object for your attention. So there are 2, or actually 3 kinds of paying attention in meditation. One is the open awareness. That means, and this is an advanced technique, I'm going to say, we do practice it at the very end of our meditations, but an open awareness is like a camera lens that's completely open aperture, that you're so rested and aware that any stimulus that comes into your awareness is what you pay attention to, and it comes and it goes without any attachment. This is when you hear gurus say, oh yes, honey, all life is meditation. It's not always like that for many of us who are just trying to get out of our anxiety or reduce our stress or live a life that's mindful. But it is certainly a practice, is an open awareness practice. We practice it, for those of you who've been in this class before, when we stop meditating at the very end of our meditation and sit without a mantra, without anything, and sit and rest in being, resting in existence, that integration period. So we do get that experience, and some mindfulness meditations would say they use that open awareness. They focus on something, and then they open their awareness to include everything. And then they bring their attention back on something, and then they open their awareness. But most of the meditations that you'll hear about and learn are focused attention meditations. Your attention is on a particular object, whether it's something you see, feel, or hear. And it can be a candle flame. It could be something in your mind's eye. It could be, here's some ideas here. Well, let's talk about sensation-based. You can focus on physical sensations while you're seated or moving. You can focus on stillness inside, subtle sensations, or even an emotion that you cultivate. So sensations, sight-based. You can pay attention with your eyes open to a candle flame, or gazing at the night sky, or looking at the clouds or the horizon line, or you can focus on something in your mind's eye, a light, a color, a shape, a person, a scene. It's a very common visualization. We're going to be using it with our heart-centered breath. Then we have sound-based. Sound you hear or make or think. Whether you're hearing the external world, like listening to the sounds. When that man was talking about finding his Zen today, he grew up in Vietnam, and he was talking about he only likes to be by water that's moving because he likes the sound of it. So even though he might be thinking that the water is it, he is sound-based. And so some of us like to listen to sounds. Others like to chant or sing sounds. And others like to think a sound, like an affirmation or a mantra. And so mindful attention on the internal sounds or the external sounds. And then some of you talked about loving kindness. For those of you who know what that is, it's called metta bhavana, or loving kindness meditation, where you imagine people that you want to give loving kindness to. Some of you see them in your mind's eye. Some of you hear their names, while others just imagine them and get a sense of them, a feeling for them. So you can use that, plus you're saying something, right? You're saying words, so you're seeing them, you're saying words, and maybe you're even feeling a heart-centered emotion. So you can use all three. As you noticed, I didn't mention taste or smell. Aromas tend to be really helpful for meditation. They're used in all kinds of contemplative traditions, but they don't tend to stay very present in terms of your awareness of them. You walk into a room, they're baking cookies, and about 5 minutes later, you're either eating the cookies or don't notice the smell. It's because they're not stable. But we want to use something stable for your attention. Okay, let's look at, and taste. Taste involves all of these: sight and smell and sound, right? It includes it all in sensation, because you first eat with your eyes. So taste is not its own separate experience, although you could right now tune into the taste in your mouth. So what about mantras? We talked about sounds. What is a mantra? So we're going to be learning a mantra meditation today, and as well as some mindfulness practices, the heart-centered breath, cultivating emotions. We're learning a whole bunch of different ones today. And mantras come from the root word man, which is manas, which means mind, and tra, which means instrument for the mind. Mantras are found in many ancient traditions. They're found in current day traditions. You can read about it maybe in Cosmo or online in Huffington Post or whatever you read. And you'll see, oh yeah, choose your mantra, pick something that you like. But mantras are more than just picking a word that you like, although that can be helpful. Mantras are really designed to be instruments for the mind. An instrument that kind of cuts through that constant internal dialogue that you have. Some people say we have 12,000 thoughts a day. Other people say you have 60,000 thoughts a day. Whatever it is, you have a lot of thoughts a day. And when you sit down to meditate, what happens? The world takes a back seat to the activity of the mind and the body. And so when you meet your own mind in meditation and in mindfulness, it starts to become very engaging. The imagination, the mind, the to-do list, the worries, the regrets, the plans, the other people's business, your own self-evaluation. It becomes very charming. So mantras are used to cut through the meaningful activity of the mind, where one thought leads to another, and introduce you to the silence that underlies the thoughts. So we're going to learn some mantras today. In yoga class, you might have practiced some. Mantras come in every language, whether it's Amen or Alleluia, Amin or Shalom or Shanti. Mantras are in every language, and we're going to learn one that's ancient, from ancient Sanskrit today, and I'll teach it to you when we get there. So let's see where we are with our timing. We're going to take a break shortly. After we talk about, let's talk about how to use a mantra and a little bit more about mindfulness and take a mindful break. So let's see here. How do you use a mantra? So remember, mantra means instrument for the mind, but you can say them. You can listen to them, listening to Gregorian chants. I remember when I was first learning to meditate, that was kind of the thing people did, was listening to ancient chants, ancient mantras that other people were chanting. You can write a mantra. I went around the Dalai Lama's residence and people are carving mantras into stone. You can write them. You can silently repeat them, as we'll use today, silently without moving your lips. But you can also chant them aloud. So you can use them in many ways. You don't have to worry about how you pronounce them, although some people would say you do. Today you don't have to worry about that. And you can coordinate the mantra with the breath. You can sometimes say it out loud. It has nothing to do with the breath. They're involved in a lot of meditations, use them. Primordial sound meditation, Deepak Chopra's signature meditation. Transcendental meditation uses a mantra. Some people there are all kinds of meditations that use mantras. I've been reading so many more. But Herbert Benson, who founded Harvard's Mind Body Institute, he was a cardiologist. And when transcendental meditation became kind of a thing in the 1970s, that the Beatles did and was brought to America by Maharishi Mahesh Yogi, they used mantras that were kept secret. But he thought, you know what? I bet mantras work no matter what you say. And so he had people closing their eyes and repeating a mantra, just like we were counting our breaths, repeating a mantra on the exhale. So let's try that now for a few minutes. Actually, let's just give it a shot. So sit comfortably, and you can keep your eyes open if you want, gazing toward the floor if you prefer, that's capped, or closing your eyes all the way. And tune into the breath for a moment. Let your body soften. Welcome everything you hear and feel. Let your breath be natural. And on the exhale, introduce the mantra, one. Silently saying it without moving your tongue or your lips, without having to evaluate what one means. Simply tune into the sound of the word one on the exhale. If thoughts arise other than that word, just reintroduce that word on the exhale. There's no particular feeling you should be having. And now you can silently, slowly return to your eyes open. So that uses two sensations, doesn't it? It uses your breath and a mantra, just like counting that we did in the Zen Buddhist monastery where I lived, counting our breaths from 1 to 10. So there are many ways to meditate and use a mantra, whether it's one in English, like the numbers 1 through 10 or the word one, whether it's a word that you have fallen in love with from a yoga class or from Aramaic or Egyptian or Hebrew or whatever language. But ideally, the word that you use in a mantra is one that doesn't evoke more activity of the mind. Humans think mostly in words. Some of us think in visuals, but mostly we put words and ideas together. And so when you introduce a mantra, it interrupts that constant internal monologue. We all have it going on. It's mindful. Mindfulness engages what's called the direct experience network, when the person in front of you is engaging and this moment is engaging. Mindlessness is when you're checked out, doing multiple things at once, partially paying attention, and that's engaging the default neural network, which tends to operate with the monologue. And when you lie down to go to sleep or sit down to meditate, quite often that's what's going on, is this monologue. And it's been telling you the same thing over and over and over and over and over again for years. So we're going to interrupt that in meditation with using a mantra. Does anyone have any questions or comments? That elephant image, I know some of you like this image here with the elephant. Quite often in meditation, we are going to be paying attention to one or two things at the same time, whether it's your breath or your heart-centered breath or a mantra or your body. And I often use this analogy of an elephant with a mantra. The mantra, the elephants in India and probably in Asia are trained to do a lot of work. They build roads. They're also involved in a lot of celebrations. And elephants have very curious trunks. If you've ever been around one, they will come over and smell your hair and your breath with their trunk. And they can be unruly because they're massive. And if you're walking down the street with one in a wedding or a celebration for a god or goddess in India, they are very attracted to fruit and flowers and all the offerings people are giving for these gods and goddesses. But with elephants, they are trained to carry a stick. And I don't know if I have one, so I'm going to use a pen. They're trained to carry a bamboo stick in their hand. And as they carry this stick, they become a little more focused, like I've got the stick, I've got the stick, I've got the stick, I've got the stick. There's a fruit, there's some flowers, I've got the stick. There you are with your hair and your breath, I've got the stick, I've got the stick. So with meditation, the mantra is like a stick. The attention, wherever you're putting your attention, your attention is around the stick. So that everything else, though charming as it may be, your job is to hold the stick. And so that's why I love that elephant image, is you hold the stick and you keep on recognizing that everything out there is interesting, but it'll be there when you open your eyes in meditation, after meditation too. Okay, what was the name of the man who thought to, Dr. Herbert Benson, who uses the word one on the exhale. His practice is called the relaxation response, which is interesting because that's what the rest and digest response is. His is relaxation response with 2 capitals, and a relaxation response is something that you have right now, maybe, as we continue to talk about meditation. What else? Dr. Herbert Benson. So that was the only question. I love it. All right. I'm available for more questions. We're going to take a break very shortly. I just wanted to talk a little bit about mindfulness and mindfulness meditation. So we've talked about many kinds of meditation, and mindfulness meditation is a seated, or I should say standing meditation. It can be a walking meditation, but it's a formal practice. And I like to say that every meditation begins with mindfulness, because you become mindful of how you're sitting, how you're feeling, whether you're hungry, what the noises are. You become very mindful, ideally without a lot of judgment. And every meditation ideally ends with mindfulness as you move from that deep restfulness into the waking state. So mindfulness is a practice of welcoming everything, expecting nothing, and to be present with what is. And so we'll be practicing this formally. So mindfulness can be practiced informally if you're sitting down and eating or walking or driving. But you can also do it on purpose through a formal practice, whether it's breath awareness, body awareness, or a walking meditation. So you basically pay attention to what you're doing without judgment. And it comes from the word sati, which means mindfulness. And for those of you who like yoga and interested in the 8 limbs or 7 limbs or Ashtanga, 8 limbs of yoga, it's the 6th limb, dharana, right? Mindfulness, not dhyana, meditation, right? So it's dharana, mindfulness. So let's talk about living mindfully. We're going to practice meditation when we come back from our break, but ideally you will have a mindful break. We're going to be back in an hour, and I'll leave this room open, and so you can keep your computer on and stay here if you like, or you can check out and come back in, and you can just mute yourself and I'll be gone too. But we'll take a mindful break, and mindfulness meditation can encourage mindful living. So what is it? It means deliberately paying attention to what you're doing while you're doing it, noticing when you get distracted and bringing your attention back, remembering that, saying, the most important moment is now, the most important person is the one in front of me, and recognizing mindfully what's going on in your body. If you're having a break and you're eating, go ahead and eat with some awareness. If you're taking a break and you're walking, notice what it feels like to go from sitting to standing to walking out of the room. Notice what's going on so you can truly savor your life. I don't know if you've noticed, but it's like Groundhog Day these days, where every day almost seems the same. And so to fully engage so that months don't go by. Do you know it's been 7 months almost since we've been in this lockdown? 7 months can seem like 7 minutes or 7 days or 7 weeks. And the difference between making 7 months delicious and 7 months passing by like you didn't notice is mindfulness. So we can practice moment after moment after moment. And it helps you to be completely present so you make better choices, it prevents the stress from building up, and so you can savor your life. So let's take a I want to show you this in case you want to practice it. Mindful walking meditation. You get up mindfully and you pay attention to as your feet lift in place and lift in place, and as your body finds the balance between each step. So I invite you to do that. I'll leave this screen up here as we take our break, and we'll see you in 1 hour. If you have any questions, feel free to put them in the chat. If you think about them, we'll come back and we'll address them. And thank you for joining me. Let's have a nice break. We'll be back in 1 hour. Does that sound good? Yeah? Okay, and take a little time mindfully walking. Welcome back. So I realized we broke a half an hour early. That would be me. When I teach, I am hanging out over here on the right side of my brain. It is the boundless, connected, downloaded part of my brain. And my left side took a hiatus, so it wasn't doing numbers. Some of you have seen that movie or that video by Jill Bolte Taylor when her left side went offline and she could not figure out the numbers. That's how it gets for me. So anyway, we're going to continue. We're going to keep on going with this program, and it'll just give us a little more time to do some practices, which I love. But before we get started back with the PowerPoint in the class, I wanted to check in with you. And I wanted to see what your biggest takeaway is so far, how you're doing, if you want to share a question, if you, I know some of you are already teaching something very similar to this. And if you have any comments or questions about that, I know some of you are brand new to meditation. And if you have any comments or questions so far about what we've discussed, I'd love to hear what your biggest takeaway is. So you can either unmute yourself, which I think you can do, or you can put something in the chat, which I'd love for you to do as well. How mindful was your break? Did you keep thinking about it? Did you keep going, oh, I shouldn't space out here. I need to pay attention. I mindfully did some dishes. I mindfully wiped down some counters. I mindfully fed my dog. How about you? What is your biggest takeaway? If you want to share that, your biggest question, if you'd like to share that, your biggest aha moment, if you have that, or anything you'd like to say hello and put your voice out there. I know there's 17 people on the call at this point. Would anyone like to share? Say hello, see how you're doing.
I will. I just think that it's every time that we have the chance to be together with an offering, we just are so hopeful and grateful for a community of people, and that's why we all will be okay. And it's just like this love that's there. You could feel it coming across, and everybody wanting to learn and wanting to be together. It's just awesome. Thanks so much, Sarah, and everybody that's on this call. This has been wonderful.
Oh, thank you, Jill. So Jill's a meditation teacher in Florida. Thanks for joining us. And You know what? This just brings up an important point. Some of you know my
Sarah, I think you've frozen.
I think just Sarah is frozen. Is that right? Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't know if anybody else saw that or if it was just my computer. It just, well, she'll
And
get
I
back.
think, didn't she just
No,
disappear?
Sarah's disappeared, yes.
Yeah, I caught it too, Jill, and I think she may be trying to log back in, would be a guess.
Well, we'll just enjoy each other's presence until she comes back.
Everybody take a mindful moment.
And just to see what you do when you have this technology and you're frozen, and
You go get water, excuse
how you
me.
stay calm if you're the one teaching.
Being comfortable with the uncomfortable.
It's almost like communication circle.
That's right, if you feel inspired to speak. I think we're all being recorded too, so she'll be able to hear what we're saying.
Well, while we're waiting, everyone, I'm Marcy. I'm curious to know if any of you are in the training program right now?
I am. I'm finished.
Yes.
Waiting to do the intensive.
Oh,
Yeah.
wow.
Fantastic.
I've been waiting since March. I was supposed to go to Santa Barbara back in May and then again in this time. And then anyways, here we are.
Oh, very good. Well, I'm confident you all know you're in a beautiful place.
And how about yourself? Are you already a trained graduate?
I graduated in 2018, in December of 18. I did the intensive in Sedona. It was the last one in Sedona. Oh, here
Nice.
she comes.
Here's her peace sign.
Oh my goodness, the electricity just went out. And when came back on,
Oh my gosh.
I'm like, oh, stay calm, do some peace finder practices. And here we are. It all just went off and came back on. Welcome all. I'm sorry, I know you're in the middle of something.
No, we were just kind of
Wait.
catching up on who was going through the program right now and going to be going to the intensive.
Oh, great.
Graduated and being uncomfortable with the uncomfortable. And all that.
Yeah. And you'll be, some of you I know have been teaching for a long time. Some of you are just learning. And some of you, this is what we used to do to begin our intensive, is I'd have an open public class and invite everybody to come and watch me teach, because you're all training, a lot of you are training to be teachers, and then there are people that are learning. And so what does that look like? What is that relationship? And so if you find yourself a little fearful, like I can't do this, or I won't be able to do this. We didn't even used to have PowerPoints, remember? The good old days with the flip charts. And I still encourage flip charts. I think they're really good, but online learning requires something different. Anyway, what else are we talking about? I was about to talk about my history in the Zen monastery. And because you brought this up, Jill, the community is an essential part of your practice. I have to move my dog here. The community is, and she's my community, is really essential regardless of whether you're in a monastery or whether you are in a group of friends, to have these three elements to your practice. And this is really if you're diving into a lifelong practice and aiming for a deepening of self-awareness and spirituality. They're really those three, I always think of them as three legs of a stool. The first, and it's called the three jewels, is you. and your practice and connecting to that deepest part of you. And I saw so many beautiful comments in the chat in terms of who you really are. And that would be called in a monastery the Buddha. That's you. That's that untarnished, unencumbered, completely beautiful, true nature of yours. And then the second ingredient is wisdom, wherever you gain it, whether it's from contemplative poetry or the Bible or the Talmud or the Quran, or whether it's from ancient wisdom in the Upanishads or the Bhagavad Gita, or whether you get it from your grandchild or grandmother or your partner or the clouds or the sky or the trees or the ocean. So the first is you and your practice and connecting to the deepest part of you. The second is knowledge. And in the Buddhist tradition, they call it the Dharma, D-H-A-R-M-A, Dharma, which also means sort of the duty you personally have in life. But in the Buddhist practice, it's really your knowledge. And the third ingredient for a sustainable meditation and mindfulness or contemplative practice is a community of practice. Now, for me, you are my community right now. And hopefully for you, we are your community right now. And the community doesn't necessarily mean it's your parents or your friends or the people you live with or your children or your partners, or it can be your animals. But in general, it doesn't always relate that way. Sometimes your community of practice it can include others, it's like a subset, but basically it is generally people who are looking at life in a very similar fashion when it comes to adopting a meditation and mindfulness practice. So that's called a sangha. You might have heard the term satsang, which is a community of gathering and people sharing what's important to them, and usually spiritually based. And so sat means truth, whatever you consider truth. It's not a particular truth. And sangha is short for sangha, or community. And so this is the community of practice that we're together now in. And I aim to make everyone I encounter, now this is probably an advanced technique, my community of practice, whether I enjoy them or not. They become my spiritual community because I feel like it's like we're little stones in a tumbler and we get to smooth each other's stuff out. And whether they've signed up for it or not, they're smoothing my stuff out. So that's my community is really, it's everyone now, but it didn't always used to be that way. I had to go sequester myself in a monastic setting for years to understand the value of that. But you don't have to do that. You can be right here, right now, and get it all. So back to the questions. I don't know, hopefully the electricity will stay on. Sometimes it goes off. It's going to get really hot here in California in the next week. So let's just avert the danger before it arises with the wildfires. I wanted to invite you to share in the chat, and I think some of you have. The chat's gone for me, but if anyone has any comments or questions about what we've learned so far or the takeaways so far, whether you're a teacher or whether you're brand new to meditation, anything that struck you, kind of like a chord being struck on a guitar. Would anyone like to share? You can unmute yourself if you like.
Sarah, can I just say that, I've been Sarah, can you hear me okay?
Yes. Hi,
It's
Marcy.
Marcy. Hello?
Hi. Yes.
Great.
Yeah, we can hear you.
And I just wanted to say, I've been teaching the Seed series for a while now, and the PowerPoint is just stunning.
Oh,
Beautiful.
thank you.
Magnificent job with that. I'm kind of realizing how much more that really adds to the teaching. And I haven't been able to see you or talk to you for a while, so ever grateful to you for showing us the way.
Oh, thank you. Well, I'm so happy that you like it. I definitely see some typos. I'm always editing, being a writer, but it's really helping because a lot of us who are in the teacher training have to teach online now. I mean, my whole business has moved online and here we are. So if you're one of those people, this is very helpful to use just to keep, because many people are visual. So thank you, Marcy. Anyone else care to share what's going on for you?
I'll share.
Yeah, hi.
Hello, aloha.
Aloha.
So I am in the teacher training program, and I am about to finish.
Oops.
And I just wanted to say that, you know, a chapter or two ago was the beginner's mind. And, you know, I've read about a lot of what we've talked about today. And just for the people that are new or even other students, it's always new. It's always fresh. Even hearing the exact same thing. It's a life journey to discover yourself. It'll never end. And I get so much out of it, whether there's just one little tidbit that's new or a whole lot that's new, or if it's just reinforcing the things that I'm learning. I mean, you go through this program, I'll be finishing it on time, but that means that I've been studying for 18 months how to undo 56 years of what was not serving me well. So I just appreciate it so much. I'm so grateful to be in this program. It's exactly what I needed at exactly the right time.
And yeah, beginner's mind, what is that? What is that? So we're going to talk about that in a minute. Let me just go ahead and do it from our current slide here. So beginner's mind is something we're going to talk about in terms of what you need every time you meditate and every time you teach and every time you hear something that you already know. A beginner's mind is a mind that's free from preconceived notions about what is. So when we talked earlier about mindfulness, we talked about having a bare attention. That's an attention that is free from the labels, free from preconceived notions, free from your assumptions and your judgments. You know, I mean, with the current environment around diversity and racism, you know, even I noticed when I was leading in earlier and there was this man who looked like he was stressed out. I said, he's probably a coder, right? Because I just, that's racism right there. And, you know, being a beginner's mind, that's just a man who's having a stressful moment, maybe. And, you know, because he had his tag that he was at a conference, I just assumed he was a high-tech guy doing that. But, you know, it's not necessarily true. It's not necessarily true. And so shedding the preconceived notions of everything and everyone and continuing, I have house guests here, and I was talking about stalking the mind, even when you're having the internal dialogue and recognizing what it is, or having those preconceived notions and judging someone by the way they look or act or their accent or their job or how they're dressed or what they're driving or what they do for a living. And so a beginner's mind is a way of approaching life as if everything is new. And what would that tree be like if you didn't know it was a particular type of tree? What if you didn't call it a tree? What is it? You know, does it move? Does it connect with you? And I know that sounds sort of esoteric and strange, but we do use this approach when it comes to learning new things and as a way of meeting our own mind with every meditation practice, and as a way of doing walking meditation or mindfulness walking meditation. It's a way of taking a step as if you've never taken a step, maybe like a 1-year-old would do, a toddler would do, taking a step and recognizing the balance and the swaying that your body does to stay upright, and then lifting and placing the other foot and noticing that without labeling your body as this or that, or labeling the step, or not even paying attention. So again, beginner's mind is bringing your full attention in without any knowing, without any preconceived notions, and being maybe hopefully awestruck. Yeah, is there anyone else who would like to share before we move into the next conversation? Anyone have any aha moments so far? Questions? Okay, well, we're on to the next subject, and feel free, put it in the chat if you do have a question or a comment. I will check in periodically. So this is what I noticed with meditation and the formal mindfulness practice, which is called meditation. We talked about mindfulness as a way of life, and the formal practices of mindfulness are meditation. meditation, mindfulness meditation, but not all meditation is mindful, and not all mindfulness is meditation. So, but let's talk about meditation itself, including mindfulness meditation. So we talk about focusing on one thing at a time. It helps you to monotask. With practice, with the mindfulness meditation practice, whether you're saying one or doing a different mantra, or you're walking, or you're paying attention to your breath, you're honing your attention to be able to deliberately pay attention to what you want to, when you want to. So you become less distracted, less bifurcated with your attention. You learn to monotask or unitask, which sounds a little boring maybe. So when you walk, all you do is walk. You're not checking your phone and eating. When you drive, all you do is drive. You're not talking on the phone and changing the channel of your radio. You know, you're doing one thing at a time. When you're listening, you're listening. When you're speaking, you're speaking. And this helps you. It helps in business. It helps in just about everything. Prevent accidents, become less distracted. Your attention becomes a very well-used currency. And it creates a lot less stress when you're able to do one thing at a time. There's studies on multitasking, which will show you that it actually gets worse over time. If you happen to be one of those people that have 15 windows open on your browser, and then when you shut them down and you really want to focus on one thing, unfortunately, you've been training your attention to switch, and it actually gets worse over time. The ability to focus is lessened. Secondly, if you practice meditation, your attention, generally speaking, is more engaged in the present moment. As you begin to recognize the future and the past become a little less dominant. They become a little less distracting. And you recognize, just like Thich Nhat Hanh says, this is it, and Kenny Loggins sings, this is it, make no mistake where you are, that your attention is right here, and this is when life is happening. Your ideas about it are in the future. Your memories about it are in the past. But right now is when your life is taking place. And in the present moment is when you can connect to somebody else, or can be aware of synchronicities and signs and wonders, or can tune into your inner wisdom or the signals from your body. So focused on the present moment helps you to be much more responsive to the choices around you, more present with people. You savor your moments. You start to recognize what's a good thing and bad thing for you. And it does help you to be inspired, because if you're distracted by your to-do list, and here comes inspiration tapping you on the shoulder, or here comes creativity or intuition, you're busy, you're on the phone, you're playing your video game, or you're distracted with your 14 windows, browsers open, you know, you might miss the connection or the information that's coming as we all awaken to the synchronicities. And then you also begin to focus your attention on your inner experience. Again, what's a yum, what's a yuck, what's not nourishing, and what's toxic. Start to align your life with your values and your commitments. And you become more intimate with the source of your attention. And what is that source of your attention? So if you look right now, or you notice your attention, maybe it's at the screen or in the chat or something going on in your room, turn that attention back on itself. Turn that attention back on the source of it. Where does your attention arise from? What is it that's paying attention, and where is it arising from? And is your attention the same thing as my attention? So we'll check it out. I love those notes, thank you. Your ideas. So this is a good point, Audra. She says her most creative ideas happen when she's either meditating or running or walking. And why is that? Because you've sort of dusted that table when you've meditated, so that the signs and wonders are easily seen and recognized, instead of being shrouded over by the dust or the stress or the dimmed awareness. And then when you've got your body doing some rote activity, such as running, and I know you're a runner, so it's rote for you. For me, it would be a brand new thing. But you know, if you're doing dishes or taking a shower or running, it allows sort of that rational mind to kind of take a little bit of a break and the signs and wonders sneak in as you're kind of paying attention to what's going on. So good for you. Yeah, thinking by the ocean, right? Undistracted. Perfect. So your ability to pay attention and to be focused and to be present is enhanced. You know, and maybe you've never articulated it like that, but that's the way I like to look at it. So let's play a little game here about attention. And so look around the room, and I'm not going to let you see this. Look around the room and look for three things that are red. Find 3 items that are red. And while you're at it, find 3 round items in your room. Maybe outside your window if you have a window. 3 items that are red and or round. Okay, now close your eyes for a moment if you will. And bring 3 red objects, those same ones, to your mind. And now bring to your mind those 3 round objects. And now, with your eyes still closed, see if you can bring to mind 3 green items in your room. 3 green items in your room. And maybe 3 rectangular items in your room without opening your eyes. And now you can open your eyes. Was the red easy? Yes. If you look around now, can you see green popping out? Even the most hidden color of green? The round items, we knew they were there, but how about this rectangular items? If you look for them, they pop right out. And this is really the power of your attention. This is to illustrate that your mind wants to be right, and it will always look for what will prove it to be right. And so you'll find what you're looking for, whether it's red or round, and now whether it's green or rectangular. And it's really important to notice that what you look for, you will find. Back to Einstein, who said, you have to decide, is the world a friendly place? If you're looking for the ways in which it's not, you're going to find them. If you look for the ways in which it is, you're going to find them. So the only person that can decide what their searchlight is attending to is you. You are the one. And when you're checked out completely, you're going to miss everything. But if you're looking for something negative, you're going to miss the good stuff. So you're the only one that gets to choose what you're going to see in the world. And I think this is an important fact because with meditation, you end up being much more deliberate with your attention. And it's not only that you become more self-aware or more present to what's in front of you or more able to be monotasking, you get to really decide what you're going to pay attention to and enliven that in your life. We started today off with talking about intention, and really paying attention to what it is you want to see in the world is essential. So here we go. We're going to talk about meditation and then we're going to do it. I know we did a little bit of a practice earlier with some self-inquiry when we asked the questions, who am I? And we did another practice earlier where we did the one practice for a couple of minutes there with that mantra practice, the relaxation response. But let's take a look at some guiding essentials of meditation, which I really wished I had learned way back in the beginning. And we put these together, and I find them not only to be essentials that help us with our meditation practice, but I've even found that they really help me with life. So I'm going to share them with you, and I know you can recite them all, some of you teachers. But the first is that it's okay to have thoughts. You know, we've got that mythology around meditation that it helps to settle the nervous system and you stop thinking by thinking about not thinking, but that's impossible. You can't stop thinking by thinking about not thinking. Now, there are some questions and some practices that will stop the mind, by thinking. Like in Zen, they use these koans, which are designed to stop the mind. Like what's the sound of one hand clapping? Or what was your face before you were born? But in general, your mind is designed to think. It's the nature of it, just like your eyes are designed to see. And though meditation will make your mind clearer, it's not because you clear it or you magically take control over your mind. It's the technique that allows the awareness to go beyond that distracting mental noise into that silence from which your attention arises. So you access the subtler realms where it becomes, the sounds become, they fade. First they become louder and then they start to fade. Your mind is the same way. Your thoughts become louder, but then they begin to fade. So we don't force out any thoughts. We don't resist them. And whenever you notice your attention is distracted by whatever your attention gets distracted by, I don't know what your favorite thing to do is, but mine is to decorate either a living room or a garden or wallpaper stuff. I'm really into the visual when I'm meditating. I don't know what you're into. Some people go back to conversations they've had or love that they lost or wish they had and that kind of thing. It doesn't matter how many times you recognize you're off topic though. In the meditation, your job is to come back again and again and again to the focus of your meditation, whether it's one or two of them or even three. Your breath, maybe your mantra, maybe you're even walking with your breath and your mantra. So it's the movement too. So you can bring your attention back again and again, and that is what trains the attention. Like the elephant, you know, holding onto the stick again and again and again to be more focused. And that is what changes the brain. That is what creates that neuroplasticity, is to lessen the dominance of those emergency thoughts. You know, checking your email is not an emergency, and come back to the practice. Second is don't try too hard. And we just did the effortless attention exercise where, you know, we listened and then we saw the light through the eyelids and then we felt our feet on the floor. And we recognized that our attention just can be moved where we want it to without effort. There's no trying to listen. You just listen. There's no trying to feel the chair underneath you. You simply feel it. And as Yoda would say in Star Wars, do or do not. There is no try. Trying is something that the mind does. I'm going to try and solve this problem. I'm going to try and do this right. No, you simply listen. You're not trying to listen. You simply pay attention. You're not trying to pay attention. So you only need a gentle attention in mindfulness. And then the third is to let go of expectations. We just talked about this, the beginner's mind, a mind free from preconceived notions about how this meditation is going to go. You've tried it before, it doesn't work, or you've tried it before and you levitated, or you tried it before and you had all kinds of visions, or you tried it before and you got bored. It doesn't matter what happened before. With meditation, just like every single moment, you can begin again. You can constantly begin again. So preconceived notions about what a meditation looks like or good meditation looks like is not helpful in this particular case of meditating. You can evaluate later, but the truth is your perception of how it went, or even your evaluation, is not that important, because meditation works whether you thought it was good or not. So you don't judge your experiences of how it worked by the experiences you have in meditation. You can have all kinds of experiences, which we'll talk about in a few minutes after our meditation. So you don't have to achieve a certain experience to do it right. You're going to welcome everything. And you're going to be kind to yourself, which is the fourth one. And none of these are in a particular order. You might have learned them a different way if you're a teacher out there. But you know, it's really important how you treat yourself in meditation, because a lot of us have the default of being kind of hard on ourselves, and that is not helpful in meditation. As a matter of fact, we talked earlier about loving kindness, and loving kindness is the way you actually are. That's your true nature, is to be kind and attentive and generous and loving. That's everybody's true nature. And so I don't know, it's a habit maybe of beating yourself up to think you can reach your goal that way, or that beating yourself up is going to make you better at something. But what we do know is beating yourself up is just a bad habit that has never been proven to help. Self-evaluation is helpful. Self-correction is helpful, but doing it as if you were talking to a good friend instead of, somebody you absolutely hate, because that is not helpful. So how you treat yourself in meditation is a great practice for how you treat yourself in your life. And so you get to know yourself like you would a good friend, and recognize the fact that you're even here and now, that you're really doing something good. So the last is to stay with the practice. Now, this refers to two things. First, obviously, you got to do it in order for it to work. It's like joining a gym and not going, it's not going to work. But sticking with the practice is really important. So you do it every day if you can, and we'll talk about best times after we meditate. But secondly, to predetermine the amount of time you're going to meditate for before you start. The reason I say that is because many of us will, and I've met many people who are sort of self-taught meditators. There's nothing wrong with that. I love it. However, it's important to know that you don't meditate just until it feels like you're done. It's really essential to establish some sort of discipline, whether your discipline is to meditate 5 minutes once a day, or whether it's to meditate 20 minutes twice a day. The idea is to predetermine the time you're going to meditate and how long you're going to meditate for, and stick with it, so that when the thoughts come in that, you need to check your email, or you really should have called that person back, or you just needed to order something offline or online, you don't say, okay, I'm going to meditate later when I'm feeling like it, or I need to take a nap first, or I need to eat first. Basically, you're going to do the time. You're just going to do the whole thing. And when the mind protests, which it does, and guess which part of the mind is the protester? The amygdala, which turns everything into an emergency, whether it's checking your email or picking up your phone or getting something to eat. The amygdala will take a back seat to the part of your brain that is more rational, the CEO, the neocortex. So as you sit in meditation, you've got that impetus to get up because you've got to check something out. You can say, thank you for sharing. You don't actually have to say that out loud or even at all, but have that attitude that, I know you want to get up, but we're going to sit here and finish the next 3 minutes. And I'll tell you what, sometimes the most intense anxiety can arise, or the most intense compulsion to get up might arise. And obviously there's usually not an emergency. And if there is, you should get up. But if it's just a thought that you're having that leads to this feeling of intensity, sit through it and stick with your practice. And this will change that landscape of your brain and will give you the ability to stick with just about everything. So this is one of the most essential parts of the 5 essentials, is stay with your practice, even if it gets rough in there, because it's, there are no meditation emergencies. You don't really, the only thing I would say is if you're dealing with an emotion that seems overwhelming, I would open my eyes and look around and see if I need to do something else. But otherwise, there's really no reason to stop meditating. So here, where to meditate? How about this? Where should you meditate? You can meditate just about everywhere as long as you're not operating heavy machinery. And the meditation we're talking about is the seated meditations. You don't have to have a mudra. She's got these positions in her fingers. You don't have to have a mudra. As a matter of fact, I meant to change out this picture. But though it may seem like a romantic idea to go to Sedona, where I used to live, and meditate on the top of a red rock vortex, it's not required. As a matter of fact, if you can control your environment, that would be the best thing. If you can, handle the heat in the air and the interruptions, that would be the ideal. So ideally you want to, and in ancient times, they would have you in a cave, right? Because the external world is a little unpredictable, whether it's the birds that are chirping or the bees that are buzzing, the dogs that are panting, or nowadays, the traffic. And so finding a place where you would be relatively undisturbed, where you can be comfortable, where you can sit comfortably without being interrupted, turning off your devices. The only reason to have a device on is to use a meditation timer, but you don't need to. You can meditate almost anywhere that you'll be undisturbed. And I do it in the backs of churches. Way back when we used to be able to go out, I would do it just about anywhere. In my car, in the parking lot of Sprouts over here. Just meditate wherever you find the time and the place and where you'll be undisturbed. And here you go, how to sit. You do not have to sit like her. You can put your hands on your lap, up, face up, palms up or palms down. Put them on your knees on the side of your chair. You can sit with a back support, or you can sit upright and practice that. Your eyes can be closed or half closed. Or you can keep them open, just gazing ahead of you, even though that's a little more advanced, I would say. You keep distractions to the minimum, like we said. I like to put a do not disturb sign. When my door is closed, in 99% of the cases, my husband will not come in. My dog might, my husband won't. And you can sit on a chair, although you see she's sitting on the floor, and that's comfortable for a lot of people, but don't go beyond your evolution. If you're not comfortable on the floor, don't sit on the floor. You don't want the body to take all your attention because of the discomfort or your foot falling asleep or your just back hurts or whatever. So set yourself up. Comfort is key. And when you're sitting, you should ideally be upright. And some of us can't sit straight, so upright is fine. And ideally, if you are sitting on the floor, put your thighs higher than the knees. Your hips higher than the knees. So you have a little cushion underneath your rear so that your knees aren't way up above. And you can always move in the middle of meditation too. Now, when should you meditate? I like to meditate first thing in the morning before the day kind of gets going without me. I don't know about you, but that would be ideal. And you can find a time that works in your schedule. The body likes rhythm. So to meditate at the same time every day. So just like you usually probably go to sleep at the same time every day, eat at the same time every day, go to the bathroom at the same time every day. See if you can add this deep, restful experience at the same time every day. And it does take a little bit to start including that in there. So you might need to get yourself an accountability buddy or a little reminder on your phone. Put it in your schedule because it will give you, like I said, it's not magic, but it'll give you a lot of benefit. Don't meditate on a full stomach. So ideally you've eaten, it's been an hour, and then you meditate. But if you're getting up first thing in the morning, as Deepak Chopra would say, some of you know who he is, he says, get up to sit down. And they used to say at the Chopra Center, rise, pee, meditate, RPM. Whatever the case may be, I know some of you have animals and you can let them out, or you can brush your teeth, or you can do whatever you need to do to get comfortable. And you can meditate almost anywhere, as we talked. I scoot up and put the pillows under my rear and sit up against the headboard in my bed. And I also like to meditate in my living room sofa. So find your spot. And at least 3 hours before bed. Okay, we're going to answer your question about sleep in just a minute. 3 hours before bed for most meditations. The meditations with mantras, at least 3 hours before bed. And you'll see why. Even though it may give you this deep, restful response, it will open up the channels of energy and information that's running through your body and will give you more vitality, and that's not so helpful if you're getting ready for sleep. So you want to do it at least 3 hours, and the ideal time is what I call happy hour. That time when we used to go to work, and then we'd come home and then have dinner, that time between work and dinner. On an empty stomach, before your happy hour, whatever you do, and if you are someone who works out, wait till your heart rate and respiration rate return to its natural resting state. And then set your timer to monitor the meditation period. Now there's a couple different timers now that I use, but the Insight timer is a great one. It has great chimes and bells you can choose. You can also choose some of their guided meditations, but you're not going to need any accoutrements really. I used to just use a watch and note the time I started and then note the time it was over. And how would I do that? I'd say, I wonder what time it is. And I'd look and I wouldn't quit before the exact amount of time was over. Because sometimes the last 2 minutes, even if you're having a lot of rough time in there, the last 2 minutes, it might be like, I could meditate longer. Even in the midst of it, you might feel like you can't stand it another second. And then you leave a little time before you jump up and do whatever it is that's been nagging you. Take a couple of minutes, even read some inspirational book or play some beautiful music or pray or journal, whatever it is that you can buffer, or bookend both of the practice on the front end of the practice and the back end of the practice with, so that you can ease into it and ease out of it. Because as we said before, meditation is a state of consciousness. It's different than being awake, because even though you might be completely aware, your nervous system is a very deep state of rest. And it's not like sleep, because you're not taking a nap, even though it can feel like it's dreamlike. You will end up having a little more awareness than being asleep. So it's somewhere between being awake and asleep, but it's completely different because they're different psychophysiological markers. Now let's see here, the questions. Are there any meditations to help with sleep or before bed? So Janine, first of all, good question. And there are specific sleep meditations, but I'm going to talk about why you wouldn't do some of the ones we're doing here before bed. Meditations before bed ideally are like, well, let me put it this way. You want to address the problems that you're having that are keeping you awake, right? And it's not because you're just a night owl, because most of us are not. There are particular best times of day to wake up and go to sleep. And ideally between 10 and 11 o'clock are the best times to be in bed without your screens and doing something relaxing beforehand. If you meditate at around 4 or 5 p.m. in the afternoon and or something early in the morning, what you're doing is you're relieving the stress that impede the natural settling down of the body and that impede the body's natural alignment with the rhythms of nature. So meditation, even way, way earlier than sleep time, is a way that the body does prepare for sleep and gets back into its natural rhythm, which is what we want. So I would say you'll notice, and I've heard this from many new meditators, that they notice if they meditate at those two times, first thing in the morning, anytime before the sunrise, ideally between the hours of 4 and 6, and then at happy hour, same thing, between the hours of 4 and 6, not for 2 hours, but sometime during that time, that will allow for the stress to be released, for that table to be wiped off of its dust, so that your body will know it's time to sleep. And it will sleep without the worry and the anxiety, which can obviously keep you up. So about sleep though, I mean, the good old counting sheep, that is in and of itself a meditation. You got the visual and you got the numbers. So you could do that, but I'd rather you count your blessings. Or you can do a yoga nidra practice. Now a yoga nidra, yoga as you know means union, and nidra is a Sanskrit word for sleep. Now we have a few of those that are recorded that I recommend. Richard Miller is a great yoga nidra advocate and has a whole series on that. If you go to Feast for the Soul, I'll put this in the chat, feastforthesoul.org. It is an organization I direct that has a whole bunch of free meditations on there, and Richard Miller gave us a whole series, so you could look it up, feastforthesoul.org, and Richard Miller, and you can have him guide you into it. A yoga nidra is a practice of moving fairly quickly and systematically through the body as you're lying down. And what it does is it doesn't allow the mind to rest on the default neural network conversation or monologue. It keeps you going from left to right, to left to right, to left to right. It works on the brain. And it's also, you start that practice with that sankalpa, that intention and that willingness to go through it. You always state some sort of intention ahead of time. So that's a great practice to listen to or be guided through, is a yoga nidra. But I like to count blessings. I also like to do a loving kindness practice, which I basically let it direct itself. And loving kindness, we won't go into too much today, but you identify a phrase of kindness, whether it's may you be happy, may you be free from suffering, may you awaken to your true nature, may you know that you are loved, may you be peaceful, whatever kind of blessing or offering you might have for someone you care for. And you can lie there, and as you start to do that for people in your family or people at work or people that in your neighborhood or for yourself. And then you sort of invite whoever needs it most to come. And as they make themselves known on the screen of your awareness, you can use that as a way. And that's very peaceful. And we will drift off in the middle of that. So you can do a systematic body scan, which is a mindfulness practice, which we're going to learn. You can count your blessings or count sheep. You can do a loving kindness practice before bed, and just let whatever happens, happens. Don't let it be too directed. And you can do a yoga nidra. The only thing I'm going to recommend that you don't do is a mantra practice before bed. Okay? Let me see what else you have to do here. Does that help, Janine? I don't know, I can't see you, but you can let me know if it does in the chat.
Yes, that absolutely helps.
Oh, great. You're welcome. People really tend to put meditation in there with relaxation, and it is relaxing, and you have to ideally be relaxed before you start to meditate. But relaxation and meditation are two different things. So you really want to move toward more relaxing.
Well, that's where I struggle a bit too, because when people ask me about it, well, I don't want to build any associations with some of my practices or their practices that you do during the day, like the body scan or the yoga nidra. I'll sometimes do if I need a rest, but like instead of taking a nap.
Mm-hmm.
But so I don't want to build associations with my body where then I'm like falling asleep during my other practice. So I was just curious, because I know a lot of people say they meditate before bed, but I always read in the work not to. So
right. And that's really because people are not really great at taking time for themselves. And again, they associate relaxation and meditation, which they are associated, but they're not the same thing. So I like that you're not building that association. And, just find a routine for bed that will help you, whether it's, moving away from your screens, don't sleep with your phone, maybe doing some journaling or something that is more nourishing before bed, because having yourself be on, then suddenly turning it all off, it doesn't always work that way unless you're exhausted. And yeah, you might be from stress, but ideally find a nourishing sleep routine. They call it sleep hygiene. But really a lot of it has to do with the lowering the pressure and the stress before bed, not right as you hit the mattress. So yeah, I'd say counting blessings it's a really good one. And the loving kindness works for me too. I don't know if anyone else likes to do that. One thing Deepak Chopra recommends is to recapitulate. And what does that mean? That recap is short for recapitulate, right? You recap your day. You go back from the moment you wake up, just go back and just start playing your day out in front of you. Or you can do it the other way around, like what had just happened, what happened before that, what happened before that. But really bringing attention and kindness to yourself and watching yourself, how you made choices during your day or how you interacted during your day. That's something you can do just to bring awareness to your life. That's something you can do with that, and that generally put you right out.
Sarah.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
Oh, go ahead.
Oh, okay. It's Holly. I have it on gallery, so I can't even see myself. I was trying to find you. Real quick question. What we're talking about here, are we talking about how we are meditating, or when we're going to teach meditation to students too? Because sometimes when I find that teaching to a room full of people, some people choose to lay down, but then you hear snoring.
Right.
So I know we want to sit up and everything, but what we're learning right now, is this about our practice or when we're teaching to other people?
Well, I can answer it in both ways. So some people, they equate meditation with relaxation, right? And so people have tough lives and they've been hard on their bodies, and it is hard for them to sit up and relax. But it isn't the same thing. Napping and meditating are two different things. And the essential differences are that meditation helps you to connect with the awareness. Napping helps you to connect with sort of the off button where you're refueling, so to speak. And there are two different ways to refuel. If you're sitting up and falling asleep in meditation, we'll talk about this after our meditation, it will mean that you are fatigued and maybe a nap is what you need. But there's no arguing with people when they want to lie down to meditate. I mean, maybe it's the most rest they've had all day. So we're not going to take that away from them, but ideally sitting up is key because you're learning a new way of being. Remember, meditation isn't sleeping. It may feel like sleep. It gives you the deep rest that sleep gives you, but it's a new way of being. Think about this. How many of you have ever just really been sitting up and doing nothing but being completely relaxed? It's a new way of being. And that practice of 20 minutes once or twice a day will help you to be relaxed and present when you're involved in activity. That's the yoga, is that bringing it into the activity where you're present and slowed down and non-reactive and being. And so you move from that human doing to the human being. So I would say if people want to lie down, let them, but it's encouraged to practice this new thing, which is not a nap. And even in the most experienced meditators, I've heard them say, I have to lie down. There are ways to lie down to meditate that can keep you attentive. One way is to bring your knees up, lie down on your back and bring your knees up and let your knees touch each other. No, I'm not going to demonstrate it here, but just imagine your knees are up and put your knees touching each other. And then when you start falling asleep, they start moving apart or you start to lean. That keeps you alert if in fact you're really wanting to meditate. Another way to do it is to put your hands in a particular mudra. This is one, I don't know if you can see it, a Gyan mudra, where you hold them like this, and when you notice your thumbs have kind of gone apart, you bring them back together to keep you alert. And you might have seen the sort of statues of the Buddha lying on his back with his hand like this. That is an actual posture for meditation that keeps you alert, because there's certainly people who cannot sit up. So, but those people who just figure, well, I'll nap or meditate, I don't care which one, that's not meditation anymore, because meditation involves awareness, not lack of awareness.
All right, so just educating and just telling them that, maybe they'll say, oh, maybe I should try that, and they'll keep trying, right?
Yeah,
All right,
and do
thank
not
you.
oppose anybody. Do not oppose anybody, because don't, just let them do what they're doing. Yeah. So let's see what else. Thank you for sharing, Nancy, about that. Perfect health, the Ayurvedic practice of bath, yoga, moves, and oil rub. Should that be done before or after meditation? Ideally before. Because here's why, and this may not make any sense to you new meditators out there. Before you meditate and do all of the purification practices, it really is its own meditation. It's called the Abhyanga, the self-massage with coconut oil or almond oil or sesame oil, where you're rubbing your body with a light coat of oil, circles around the joints and rubbing back and forth on the long bones. It's a way of enlivening the body. It's a little a la yoga, and then you wash it all off. You don't wash it off with soap, but you wash some of it off, and then you sit down to meditate, because in ancient wisdom, whether you believe this or not, and it really is a belief, they say that you produce sort of a glow. It's called ojas, a glow that you don't want to wash off. So if you can do all this before you meditate, and then you get to wear the glow around for the rest of the day, that would be ideal. I hope that helps. And let's keep moving, shall we? Because I want to get you to meditate a little bit. Does that sound good? Okay. Let's see here. Okay, how to sit, we did that. When to meditate, we did that. Here we go. We're going to practice a few different things. And the first is a mindful body awareness, where you become aware of this body and you get home. You come on home to this body. Because as you know, your senses are constantly externally focused. When we practice meditation, we bring the senses in from the sounds, from the sensations, and then start to relax the body on purpose. And it's just really shining a spotlight on your interior. Your body's here all the time anyway. It's your best friend. Let's pay attention to it, and it'll bring you home to this moment. Then we do the heart-centered breath. Now, if I ask you to point to yourself, how would you point to yourself? Would you point to yourself like this, like this, like this? Or would you point to yourself touching your heart? Most people, when they point to themselves, or they're emphatically saying, I, they're pointing to their chest, this place, this soul, the home of your awareness, the soul center. And so we want to go ahead and do a heart-centered breath, and let's actually try it now. So take a moment, and you can keep your eyes open for this if you like, and imagine that your heart is where the breath is moving in and out of. Dropping your attention to the heart center, feeling it. Maybe you feel its slight heartbeat, getting a sense of you as that is the seat of your soul or the center of your awareness. You might even see a light, or you feel some warmth or a color or a shape. Really, it's you. See, feel, or imagine the center point of you, and you can imagine that the breath is moving in and out from here. It's really taking that long journey from the head to the heart. And this heart-centered breath helps to drop that attention to the heart and enliven the qualities of the heart, which we've talked about before. Compassion and kindness, presence, clarity, discernment, all the I am statements you made. Courageous, clear, intuitive knowing. Bringing the attention here like they do in HeartMath, the Institute in Northern California, where they've done a lot of studies on creating that brain-heart coherence as you breathe in and out from the heart center. It may not have any effect on you whatsoever, but research shows that the heart has more magnetism than any other part of your body and has a lot of neurons, not as many as the brain, but certainly many that are wise. So dropping your attention here helps you to live a little more fully. So you can do this anytime. You can keep doing it as I'm talking. I do it sometimes as I'm driving, or I'm listening, or I'm waiting in line with my mask on to buy groceries. So just dropping your attention here, it helps to take sort of the cerebral activity down a notch. So we'll be practicing the body awareness, a heart-centered breath, and then we'll do some questioning meditations. We'll ask some questions silently with our attention on the heart if it feels right. And we're just simply going to ask questions that we can't Google, and I'll give you those as we go into the meditation. And then we'll move to breath awareness. It's a mindfulness practice once again. As I said, mindfulness really consists of 3 formal practices: body scan, walking meditation, and breath awareness. So we're going to practice a breath awareness, and I'll guide you every step of the way as you right now can tune into the breath as it moves in and out of your body. There's no need to control or regulate your breath, but the breath may change with your attention, just as everything else does. And then we'll move to a silent mantra practice, where we've rested, we've asked ourselves some questions, we're aware of the breath and the body, and we're going to introduce a silent mantra, which is based on the sound of the breath. And I'll teach it to you as we meditate. We'll do that. The whole practice is about 22 minutes. And then we'll go into an integration period when the bell sounds, and I'm going to use a chime. We'll sit in stillness for a couple of minutes and taking our attention off the mantra and off the breath and moving into what is called the open awareness practice. So this is the sound it'll be. Hopefully it sounds good. I have no idea. I'm digital. So the integration period is really essential because I think this is one place that most people don't spend enough time, is after meditation in the restfulness. That restful integration where you sit before you get up and walk around and sort of infuse the qualities and the benefits of the meditation into your awareness. We usually take about 2 or 3 minutes for that. So these are the practices, and they're designed to establish mindfulness, activates the quality of the heart, and encourage self-awareness, and expand your awareness. See, there's a typo, and even before we start, we'll take a few long, slow, deep breaths. But we're going to not do that yet. In fact, what I'd like to do, if you need a little biology break, I'm going to invite you just to get up and walk mindfully to your restroom. If you need to get something to drink before we do this, because as I said before, relaxation is essential, comfort is key, and I don't want you to be thinking about your body and worrying about that before we start. So ideally, we're going to take a short break, but I'm going to stay here and answer any questions or like to share anything with me before we start. I'll be here for the next couple minutes, then we'll get started. How are you doing? Anyone have any questions or comments? I'm going to go ahead and lock our room so people don't come in now, so we can have some peace. Here we go. Okay, well, welcome back. All right, so it's a great time now to be sure that you've shut off your phone and you're getting as comfortable as you can where you're seated. I'm going to be keeping track of the time. And you can practice eyes open or closed, or even gazing down softly toward your hands or the floor. Get as comfortable as you can where you are right now. We'll be meditating for about 22 minutes and we'll get started. I think some people are still out. Let's see here. Okay, well, let's get started and they'll join us. Many people know what they're doing. Some don't. So let's close the eyes or get as comfortable as you like. And I just want to share that if you need to at any time during this meditation, open your eyes or look around or scratch an itch or adjust your posture, it's perfectly fine. There are some meditations that different techniques and different lineages and practices that don't allow for that. But in this case, you can certainly move if you need to, because I believe comfort is key. So let's get started. Eyes closed or gazing softly toward the floor. And give yourself 3 long, slow, deep breaths through the nose. Breathing in slowly and fully. And breathing out slowly and fully. Sending a signal to your body that it's okay to relax as it activates the rest and digest response. Breathing again in and out through the nose. At your own pace, slowly and fully. And then let your breath return to its natural rhythm and depth. So begin now to notice how you're feeling and maybe make some adjustments in your posture. And let's begin to welcome everything you hear. Notice sounds that are near and far. Welcoming everything and resisting nothing. Practicing being mindful as you let go of labels or judgments about what you hear. Listening to the sound of the sounds rather than identifying the source of the sound. And now tuning in to your body. We'll begin with a mindful body awareness practice. And if you notice any areas in your body that seem to be tense or need some extra attention, I invite you to spend a little time there without any judgment, maybe with a little curiosity. You begin now to notice the sensations at the top of your head. And softening your brow and your eyes. You might notice air on your skin, or warmth or coolness, moistness or dryness. Softening your cheeks and noticing the sensations in and around your nose. Having that curious, non-judgmental attention as you notice the sensations in and around your ears. And in and around your mouth. You might tuck your chin in just a little bit and allow the back of your neck to lengthen slightly, and notice what it feels like to move mindfully like that. Noticing the sensations in your throat, your windpipe, noticing your neck, and lowering your shoulders, becoming aware of the sensations, perhaps now of the clothing on your skin, or the way your arms hang comfortably from your shoulders and rest in your lap. If you begin to tell a story about how you're feeling or what's going on, come back to the sensations, becoming curious perhaps of heaviness and lightness. Perhaps you feel some tingling in your hands. And bring your attention to the back of your body, your neck, tops of your shoulders. And if you're leaning up against a chair or a cushion, notice where your body meets that support and the sensations involved in that. Bring your attention to your lower back. Noticing what's here without any judgment. Bring your attention to the front of your body. Noticing the chest, the breasts, varying sensations of the diaphragm and the belly. Welcoming everything and staying out of a story. Just tuning in to sensation. Whenever the attention drifts away to another time or place, let's bring it back here with kindness. Noticing the support underneath you now as you let go of any tension in your hips, your groin. Noticing where you completely are supported underneath you by the chair or the cushion. Noticing the sensation on the tops of your thighs, if your hands are resting there. Scanning your knees. Noticing your calves and your shins. Perhaps you feel your clothing on your skin again. Noticing your ankles and your feet, whether they're inside some socks or shoes or whether you're barefoot. Noticing where the feet are and the support underneath them. And then widening the aperture of your attention to include your entire body. Noticing sensations, perhaps where you begin and end, or where your edges are, if you can sense them at all. Notice the stillness that's present. Notice whatever movement is here. Tuning into the movement of the breath or the movement of the blood moving in and out, in and around your body, the heart, the beating. Noticing the gentle rise and fall of your chest. Bringing your attention to your heart center and practicing that heart-centered breath. Whenever you notice your attention drifting away, bring it right back here and be kind to yourself, letting go of any expectations you might have. As you see, feel, or imagine the breath moving in and out from the heart center. And now we'll begin to practice self-inquiry. We'll practice this with a beginner's mind, not expecting an answer, though one may occur. Simply asking a question a few times and then returning to the silence. The first question you can ask yourself is, who am I? Even though you've asked this before, ask it again. Who am I? Ask yourself a few times and then return to the stillness. The next question you can ask yourself is, what is my heart's desire? What is my heart's desire? Ask yourself a few times and return to the stillness, not expecting anything. And the last question for this practice is, how can I best love myself? How can I best love myself? And then letting go of all the questions and any answers that you might have heard or felt or seen. Bring your attention now to your breath as we begin to practice mindful breath awareness. Notice the breath as it moves in and out of your body, in and out of your nostrils. There's no particular way you should be breathing. Just let it be natural. As you tune into the sensations of the cooler breath on the inhale and the warmed breath on the exhale. Whenever you notice your attention drifting away, come on back here to the breath. It's always here for you. As you notice the nuances of each breath without regulating it or controlling it, tuning into the movement and the stillness. Noticing the pauses between each breath. Some people can hear the sound of their breath, the subtle sounds of the inhale and the exhale. We're going to introduce a mantra now that are aligned and informed by the sound of the breath. On the inhale, the mantra is Ham, spelled H-A-M, but pronounced Ham. On the exhale, the mantra is Sa, S-A-H, Sa. Ham on the inhale and Sa as you exhale. The repetition of the mantra is very gentle. It's like you're listening to it. There's no need to force or enunciate. It's like an internal chant. Hum on the inhale and Sa on the exhale. The mantra means I am that in Sanskrit. Tuning into the sound of the mantra, we'll practice this for a little while. I'll keep track of the time. There's no particular feeling you should be having or experience you should be having. Keep coming back to the mantra. Hum, Sa. Now, keeping your eyes closed, stop repeating the mantra and sit in open awareness. Resting in being. I'll sound the chimes to signal the end of the meditation. I invite you to keep your eyes closed for another couple of minutes through the integration period. With your eyes closed, notice how you're feeling. Notice the nature of your mind, your body, your emotions. You might begin to give yourself some deeper breaths with your eyes closed. Begin to become a little more aware of the space around you or the sounds around you. You might stretch into the space around you or do some shoulder rolls or neck rolls. As you slowly begin to open your eyes when you feel ready, there's no rush. Keep your eyes closed as long as you like. But when you do feel ready, open them slowly, first with a downward gaze, and then opening them all the way when you feel ready. So how are you doing in there? We're going to go over the practice in a minute. You don't have to open your eyes if you don't want to. I know I don't want to. Let's talk about what we did here. We started with a little awareness practice of becoming aware of the sounds around us and taking some deeper breaths. And we did a body scan, a body awareness practice, the heart-centered breath, self-inquiry. You might not even remember the questions, but they were, who am I? What is my heart's desire? And how can I best love myself? You can ask any questions you like, but those are the three I use. And then we move to the breath awareness, noticing the breath moving in and out of the body. And then we tag on the mantra, Hum Sa, I am that. I talked about koans earlier, questions that stop the mind, and this is one of them. What does it exactly mean? It doesn't matter. Fortunately, we're paying attention to the sound of the mantra, not the meaning of the mantra. When we pay attention to sounds of mantras or sounds outside of yourself, it helps to interrupt that flow of thoughts where the meaning of one thought leads to a meaning of another thought. So with sound, if we pay attention to sound without meaning, it interrupts the thoughts. And we did the mantra for a while, probably 10 minutes or so, and then we did an integration period. Actually, before that, we did a little open awareness. I thought I'd throw that in where you're without mantra, sitting there in being, resting in being. So let's talk about what when and where you can use all that. So ideally, the body scan, the heart-centered breath, the self-inquiry, and the breath awareness, all of that you can do anytime, anywhere. You can do it now. You can do it driving. You can do it walking. You can do it in conversation. But the mantra practice, the silent mantra practice, is really reserved for this formal meditation practice. You don't chant a mantra, even though there are traditions that you do chant them. But in this mantra is used to take your awareness from the level of activity. If you think of an ocean and you took a cross section, there's the waves in the ocean. And the mantra is designed to take you beyond the waves of thought patterns and identity and sounds and sensations into the stillness at the bottom of the ocean. And though there will be fluctuations and bubbles coming up, that you reach the surface again, like thoughts like, what time is it and what's happening next, or I like this mantra, or I don't like this mantra, or I remember when, and then you bring the mantra back in, you dive back down into the stillness. And it doesn't matter how many times you have to do that. And then we have the integration period. So we were meditating there for a while. Did anyone lose track of time? It was about 22 minutes, and it might have seemed like it was 25 minutes or an hour and 25 minutes or 5 minutes. All right. How many of you felt like it was longer than 22 minutes? Anyone? How about shorter than 22 minutes? Yeah, a few of you. Great. So with meditation, you can lose track of time, which is why you need an objective measure of time. And I was paying close attention because otherwise I could have been doing that for hours. That's why we need an extra hour. But you pay attention to time because you can personally lose track of it, just like with sleep. What's the first thing you do when you come out of sleep? You look at the clock or your phone, hopefully a clock, but your phone, figure out what time it is, and you look around, you figure out, is it daylight yet? And you orient yourself to time and space. Because with sleep, you transcend time and space. The same thing is true for meditation. You transcend time and space. It's sort of like it's a time warp. Sometimes an hour seems like a minute, and a minute seems like an hour. So it's nothing wrong with you. It's just part of transcending, which we'll talk about more in a moment. Now, how about the self-inquiry? Did anyone see or feel or hear an immediate answer to any of those questions? Did anyone actually hear the questions? Doesn't matter, but some people get some insight. I do want to share, and if you did, I would love to hear about it in a minute. But before we hear about it, I just want to say these are questions that are important to ask you. I mean, you can ask somebody else, questions like, how can I best love myself? Or who am I really? Or what is my heart desire? But really, these are words or questions you can't Google or Bing or ask your friends. It's all about you and your relationship with who you really are. And so sometimes it's met with radio silence, which is the case for me many times. Other times they're met with a feeling or a thought or a word or a color or a shape or something like that. And so you might have had that, but don't worry, that is rare if you have an answer. Mostly the answers come, like Audra said, when she's running or when you're doing something else. You've been meditating, you've been asking the questions, and then the answer may meet the question down the line. Other questions you can ask yourself is, what is my purpose in life? How can I help? How can I serve? There's so many, you can spend hours in those questions. And taking the pressure off yourself to answer them from your head and letting the answers evolve as life evolves. So would anyone like to share? You can put it in the chat if you felt or heard or saw an answer. You do not have to share it. You can just say yes if you want to. The integration period was before or after the bells. It's actually after. I did a little open awareness, Nancy, before the bells. I wanted to give you that direct experience of it, but that's the experience you can have and you can take with you after the bells and just sit when the doing is over. Even that slight doing of repeating the mantra is over. just to sit in awareness, sit in being. So you can do it on either side of the bells. And the mantra felt like a minute. Yeah, the mantra feels like a minute. That's why it's an instrument for the mind. It takes you beyond the relative activity of thought and awareness of thought and judgments and all that to-do lists and storytelling. It takes us, boom, right to the experiencer, the one who's having the thoughts, the one who's having the experience, the one who's here. That one, so yummy, I like that. A lot of yoga teachers and meditation teachers do not spend enough time in integration. True, and maybe we could have done it longer. But some people are really eager to open their eyes. So I let that happen, but you get to decide. I like to lie down. As a matter of fact, in the transcendental meditation communities, the TM communities, they lie down for 10 minutes before meditation to get rid of the big stressors first, like the coarse sandpaper, and then you refine it with the mantra later. And then they lie down afterwards, right after the meditation, they lie down 10 minutes for that integration. You can do that too. It's a great time to lie down. Don't you feel like you want to do that? Though you may feel relaxed right now and maybe even a little bit sleepy, over time, this will sort of be like you plugged in somehow to, anyone has an electric car, you're plugged in, you got your batteries charged.
Sarah, we can't hear you. Can hear you now.
One second. Can you hear me? Oh, the little thing just had a big exclamation point on it, my little thing. Thank you for letting me know. Where did we stop? Where did you stop hearing me?
I think you were talking about the integration period.
No way. That long ago? Okay. All right.
I think the last thing I remember is the 10 minutes before and the 10 minutes after.
Okay. Then somebody said something about paying attention to the body scan. Did we talk about that? Did you hear about that?
We did not hear you. Yeah.
That's when you lost me.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm sorry. That's when I lost you.
We
So,
lost each other.
we lost each other, but we were all right here. You got to watch my lips move. Your lips are moving. So I wanted to say that with the body scan, there are many ways to do it. The flashlight, you can imagine a flashlight that's lighting up the interior. And you can do that for a long time. You can feel your body, you can see your body, you can go into your organs, you can spend a little time on areas that you wish were different or that you ignore. Here's the one caveat. You do not want to spend any time storytelling about the body. You don't want to say, oh, that's my bad knee. It was a skiing accident, da, 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 da. I should really get that looked at. What's wrong with me? There's something wrong with my body. Anytime you get into that, you have to go back to sensation-based only, okay? You can fill it with a little love, a little kindness, but sensation-based only, no judgment. So the body scan, just to answer that question from Shauna, you can move your eyes, you can move your imagination, you can see, feel, or hear it. Everybody is different in terms of how they process information. Some people are very, very visual with meditation, while others are not. I am not. It's called aphantasia for anyone who cares to know about that. you might have trouble visualizing. Other people have no trouble visualizing. Other people are really tactile, sensation-based, kinesthetic. That's maybe what you do, is you imagine yourself spending a little time touching that part of your body. Whatever you feel is the best way works for you. There's no one way fits all. But the body scan can be done anytime, anywhere, as long as you want. Did you hear about the various types of inquiry? Like, how can I best love myself? We did the 3, but you can also ask, what's my heart's desire? Oh, how can I best serve? Or what is my purpose in life? You can ask some of those questions. Here's another question. Oh yeah, very nice, Nancy, I like that. Your response to that. When she asked herself, who am I? I am that. What is my heart's desire? Peace. And how can I love myself? Retreat and listen. And some of us may not get any words. You get a feeling, or you get nothing, or you get a visual. Just so you know, it doesn't mean you did it wrong. I've done these in big, big rooms full of people, and it's about 10 or 8% of people that respond that they got something. It's about that low. So it doesn't mean the question's not worth asking, though. Let me see, can't hear. Is it my computer? Da, da, da. We can't hear you. Okay, the soul-centered place. Nice, Nancy. You came to that soul-centered place.
Sarah, I have a question that I put in, but it might have gotten skipped. It's just when a thought comes to mind while you're meditating, not like, oh, I should do this or I should do that, but more of like a creative answer or an idea that you want to remember, but how not to disrupt like the flow.
Right. Well, do you remember what it was?
I don't. And I feel like I had like 3 or 4 things that came and I was like, oh, that is so beautiful. I want to remember that. And I don't remember any of it.
Oh my gosh, I'm sorry. That is usually not the case. Usually the case is when they're important, they will be revealed on the other end of the meditation.
And it may come back to me, but it was a really lovely meditation.
Oh, good. Well, it sounds yummy. Well, I don't encourage this, but in your case, I would put a little journal next to me and jot it down. It will interrupt your flow, though. You might have a longer meditation in that case. I don't recommend that for the most part, because most people will remember the more important thoughts after the meditation's over. Let's see what happens over time. I'm sorry that happened, though, because usually it's right there. I think it's only one time in 30 years I had that thing happen where I'm like, oh my gosh, I'll remember that. No. So anyway, I don't recommend journaling in the middle of meditation, but so let's talk about the 3 categories of experiences, and this will help sort of dismantle this. Now, in general, just so you know, you don't need to think about what you experienced in meditation. It's like you're vacuuming. I like a cleaning analogy, whether it's dusting a table or vacuuming a rug. You vacuum a rug, right? I think of meditation as vacuuming the rug. You finish vacuuming, you enjoy the clean carpet. In this case, just so you understand what's going on, we're going to unpack the vacuum bag and see what's in there with the cat hair and the dust bunnies. So let's look at this. So the 3 categories of experience can be movements of the mind, the body, and emotions, falling asleep, and transcending. So what are the differences? So movements, how many of you felt your breath change a little bit? You felt like your breath might have changed a little bit. You took some deeper breaths, or you twitched, or your legs got started moving, or you got hot or swaying. Some of you have all that. And that is so typical of meditation, because as you're dusting the table or vacuuming the rug, the stress is moving out. And as the stress moves out, there's some movement, whether it's the mind or the body or the emotions. In the body's case, it's usually an unraveling, energetic unraveling. And it could be that you've just impeded the mind-body communication. And this is the opportunity for your body to get rid of the stress it's been holding, whether it's tension you didn't let release, whether it's unexperienced emotions, or you've been holding yourself really tight. It can unravel here. The breath is the same way. The breath can change, and it reflects the activity of the mind. But as the breath changes, you may find you're not breathing very deeply. And it's perfectly fine, because the brain uses so much oxygen to process the mind activity, that you may need more as you're meditating, but it settles way down. And that's how a lot of people have measured the restfulness of meditation, is measuring the carbon dioxide that you're exhaling, which indicates how much oxygen you've been using. You see there's a question in the chat. A subtle jolt in your mind, like that, like you're falling asleep kind of thing. That can be, have you ever fallen asleep and right before sleep your whole body does this kind of jolting thing? It's like it's a sort of a release from the nervous system. And I don't think it's a bad thing. Yeah, go ahead, Shona.
It's similar to that, but I know I'm wide awake. It's quite odd. I've noticed it a few times. So I just wondered if you had any ideas about that.
Yeah, it's what's happening is your body is getting a very restful sleep. They say that restfulness. They say the restfulness you get in meditation is the same deep rest that you get in sleep. But you just articulated the difference. You're not asleep. That's the difference between those two states of consciousness, which we'll talk about a little bit more later, is that with meditation, you've got the physical and the mental rest, but the awareness is still right on board. If I walked in and said, Shona, you'd be like, yep. But if you were sleeping and you've got that same deep physical and mental rest, you're also having the awareness in a dull state. So when I walk in and go, Shona, you may not hear me, depending on how it's going for your sleep. So that is the main difference between being awake, asleep, and dreaming, and meditation is the awareness. The awareness in meditation is a lot like the awareness of being awake. It's even more expanded, however. But that is the direct experience. Your body's just totally letting go of the stress, but you're not sleeping. You're just resting deeply. Which is why some people would say with meditation, that deep rest is what gets rid of the stress. That deep rest is what unravels the stress response in the nervous system and allows you to create this new normal. So every meditation is what you need, whether you had a lot of movements of your mind and you had a lot of activity, you had to keep coming back, a lot of movements of the emotions, or a lot of movements of the body. So the body movements indicate a real unwinding. In the case of you, Shona, when it's sort of a nervous system release, it is the entire nervous system that's sort of getting a break. Sometimes it's specific, like to an arm or a leg or a neck or a back or a belly or heart, whatever it may be. That specific release is specific to that area. I've worked with enough athletes to know that if you've got a lot of pain in one area of your body that's showing up in the meditation, it's usually that part of the body that's finding balance. And sometimes it can be a little uncomfortable in the middle of meditation. You might find sharpness. You might find weaving or twitching. You might find some physical heat or something like that, or your tummy rumbling, or even your heart palpitating. It happens, and usually it doesn't last very long. And it is an indication of a site-specific stress release. So, did anyone have anything like that where the body specifically had pain or twitching or something like that? Hi, Audra.
I had heart palpitations.
You get heart palpitations.
I did this time, but I don't get them every time, but I try not to be too alarmed by them.
No, don't worry about it. Your heart's sort of rebalancing. Meditation has, so you know, is good for you. Even if it seems weird what's going on in there. Sometimes it feels like the pain is going to kill you, or the swaying is out of whack, or you have a heart palpitation. But how are you feeling right now?
Good.
Yeah, it usually straightens itself out. It's almost like you know how sometimes you get hiccups because your rhythm's a little off? It's like that. Your rhythm's coming back online. I think it's a good thing. Really good for your cardiovascular system. So I don't know, sometimes people hold their stress in their heart. A lot of times, since heart disease is the #1 killer of most women. So it's a good thing that it's rebalancing. I always look at everything that happens in meditation as being good for me. And I think it's good for you too. And when that happens, and it gets scary because sometimes it can trigger a thought, you just open your eyes and look around. Maybe take some deeper breaths and close them and keep going. Did anyone else have any physical sensations they want to share?
I had an interesting thing. I had a mammogram yesterday and I had to wear an N95. Thank God everything was fine. But it was really hard to hold my breath while they took the image in a way that I really have never experienced anxiety. And I don't really run that anxious that way.
Yeah.
But during the meditation, when I was getting in tune with my breath, that image came up and the anxiety of holding my breath with the mask on during the mammogram came up. And it was like, wow. And that was like, so that was really important to mentalize and get out of the amygdala or whatever, like to be able to really bring to consciousness and let go. But it was like that racing, like your breath when you're like, and I don't run that way. It was really extreme yesterday and then to feel it again today. So I think it was so helpful.
Yeah, well, I think, I don't know how it feels to be, well, I do know how it feels to get a mammogram, but I don't know how that felt for you, but I do imagine that you probably kept your act together there, because there you are, standing there, you want to get it over with. You're trying to be a good girl, trying to get that done. You don't need you don't need a retake of that. And I think sometimes we don't process the emotions at the time or what happened at the time. You just sort of move on. And that's what happens sometimes is there's a little unwinding that goes on, because what happens in meditation is the body and the mind, it's looking for the most nourishing experience for you. It's like, let's get rid of this. Whatever this was that you went through yesterday, we don't need it again. It's almost like it unwinds itself. So you operate without contraction and that you can be fully expanded. I mean, that's what enlightenment is to shine the light on all aspects of ourselves. And so as long as do you feel okay now?
Yeah, and it was just momentary. It was fine. Like it passed, and it was like it was really lovely actually. Like the release of that, and just like you said, like shining light and just letting that move past. But it was interesting that it was there in the first place. Like that just was right there.
Yeah. Wow. Well, it's interesting because normally we don't generally have to relive experiences to sort of process the stress that associates with it, but maybe because it was so soon.
Yeah.
Because normally you don't even know what it's about. Like with Audra's heart, you don't really have to uncover it and figure it out. Just here it is. Here's the sensation. It's moved on. I'm feeling okay now. Usually it's like that kind of generosity. And I love meditation that way. You don't have to relive any trauma. But it sounds like you did, but maybe because it was so recent.
I think, yeah, because it was such an unusual experience for me to have like a loss of breath that way. And so, yeah.
I think many of us are having a loss of breath. I know for me, having that mask on is very, very difficult for me, and it's almost re-traumatizes me. And I don't even know what from, and I don't need to know. But every chance I get, I take it off so I can breathe easily. And that can be the case when people come to learn to meditate, is because some people have that fundamental fear of not being able to breathe, whether they've had asthma or pneumonia. Sometimes it can be a little stressful. So that's why we just say, open your eyes if you feel stressed out, and just, don't put your attention on your breath. Sometimes if you're one of those people and you don't want to say it or whatever, one thing you can do instead of breath awareness, if you want to, is you can move your hands. You could place your elbows like on the arms of your chair or on whichever feels good, and you can move your hands instead of bringing your attention to your breath. So inhaling, exhaling, and you just feel the way the hands move. Can you see my hands here?
Mm-hmm.
You can. So you might, if anyone has that kind of struggle with the breath, forget about breath awareness if you want to, and just move your hands back and forth. It's still a body practice. Mm-hmm.
I've had teenagers that I've tried to teach breath awareness with, and they haven't been, and they get too anxious.
Yeah, eyes open and do this.
Great.
Yeah, it's not that you're, doing some hypnosis, but you're letting them focus on this, and they are breathing, but the attention's on the movement of the hands. And then you can introduce the mantra, and at some point they may just put their hands down. Now with the heart center breath, one thing I didn't mention that we could do anytime is if you have trouble dropping your attention to the heart center, you can put your hand on your heart until you feel like you've got it. And then you can drop your hand to your lap. Okay, let's go back to, so how many people had thoughts? I did. How many people remember their thoughts? I know some of you don't. Most of you will probably not recall specifics about your thoughts, but you know you were distracted. I don't know if that's for you. What happens as the mind and the body settle down, and I want to hear if anyone has anything to share about this, but as the mind and body settle down, which happens in meditation, whether you think it's happening or not, is we start to dust that table, right? As we dust the table, the dust moves. As the dust moves, it creates mental activity. Here's the important thing to note. The content, in most cases, of the thoughts you're having in meditation have no particular correlation to the stress you're releasing. So you could be thinking about lunch or dinner or breakfast or tomorrow or yesterday or a meeting you had, but you might not be releasing stress about that. You might just be releasing stress, and the mind attaches to a local experience, a current experience. So it's important to note that the indication that you're releasing stress is the fact that you're having a thought, but the content of the thoughts generally does not correlate with the content of the stress being released. So you could think of the same, I could be redecorating my living room, which I do on a regular basis, but I'm not releasing stress about my living room. Okay, I could be releasing stress about not being able to breathe at the grocery store, or, watching someone run a red light, or, it could be something like that I'm releasing stress about, but I'm having thoughts about my living room. It's important to know that because some people get fixated on the content of their thought in meditation, and only very rarely do you have an aha moment at meditation. Only very rarely. Would anyone like to mention or talk about that? Oh, thoughts can also be, they're obviously linguistically structured, you hear them, but some of you might have visual thoughts, colors and lights, images, some of that stuff. Does anyone want to share anything about their experience with thoughts? No? Okay. Let me see, I see something. Holly. Let's talk about that. Emotions will be next anyway. Okay, so emotions. So we talked about the mind, the indication that thoughts are an indicator, or the fact that thoughts are an indication that you're releasing stress. Contents doesn't much matter. The body is usually site-specific unless it's a whole nervous system twitch, which is it's a whole body relaxation. And the breath is the same. And then you've got emotions. Energy in motion. Think of emotions as energy in motion. I don't know about you, but I, as a child of trauma, I did not feel a lot of feelings because it was just not a good idea. And it was just not, I couldn't do it. And so oftentimes and this happened into my adult life, I would say, I'll feel that later when it's more convenient. I'll feel that when there's no one here. If I start crying, I'll never stop crying. I will watch a scary movie later and cry, or whatever it may be. I don't know if anyone else is like that, but I feel like some of us just don't give ourselves the ability to feel the feelings, take responsibility for them, and self-soothe. Ever since meditation, of course, I'm able to do that, but many of us aren't, and it's just not convenient, whether we're being the strong one in the family or keeping our act together or whatever it may be. These undigested experiences, these undigested emotions, this energy in motion tends to become issues in the tissue if we do not let ourselves process it. And sometimes, like Holly's case, she knows what the emotions are about. Some of us don't know. We may find ourselves sitting in meditation with tears running down our face, or feeling angry, or feeling grief, or sadness, or joy, or giggly. And, sometimes I think it's grace. Again, we don't have to relive any trauma, but we may have the residual emotions that we did not allow ourselves to feel. That's where mindfulness comes in. So I'm feeling something, I'm aware of it. It's that whole RAIN practice. I recognize it, I allow it to be here. I investigate it, and I nurture myself. And so I think it was beautiful that you felt that, Holly, and you didn't leave yourself. And this is why keeping with that practice period is essential, is you don't leave yourself. So I love that you were able to be there for yourself in this practice. And you felt the mat and let it come through, because it has it's like it's, my dog's walking around, that's what that clicky sound is. It's like a weather pattern. The emotions come and go like clouds in the sky when we let them, when we're not fearful of them. So I'm glad you're able to do that and be with yourself and not leave yourself in the meditation. So other feelings that can come up, like I say, tears, happiness, joy, bliss, where you just can't stop laughing or you just can't stop crying. And it's all perfect because at the end of the meditation, usually there's that integration. You've gotten rid of the stress that's keeping you from optimized health and optimized awareness. Now, some people fall asleep in meditation, and we've talked about this before. It's called the beginner meditator's nod, even though it'll last for a long time. Some people still do it. I've seen it all the time in my meditation rooms. It's people just bobbing their head. It doesn't mean you're sleeping. But we talked about this with Shona. It means your body's at a very deep state of relaxation without being used to it. I mean, how much relaxation do you normally have sitting up? So this is this kind of getting used to this new normal, where you're relaxed yet very present, where you're non-reactive and sort of being present with what's going on. So sleeping in meditation does happen, especially if you're lying down in the meditation, and it doesn't mean you've done anything wrong. It means that that's what your body needs. And some of us are so sleep deprived that it will take every chance it gets for sleep. So don't beat yourself up. And I often say you can't always know the difference between transcending and sleep, other than the difference is in transcendence, you come out of it feeling pretty alert. Whereas if you've been sleeping in meditation, you might feel a little bit of dullness. So all of these experiences are beneficial. Does anyone have any questions about them before I see Shona didn't have a lot of thoughts today. You had a solution. That's great. You cleared the deck, so the solution was able to be recognized. So that's beautiful. And that's rare. So I'm glad you had that experience. So anyone else? You like the idea of going into the stillness in the ocean, thoughts of the surface. And you know what happens is as you transcend, transcendence means to go beyond. That's literally what it means. You go beyond your identity, your problems, your concerns, your to-do list, the time, the space, everything. And you dive into this big ocean of consciousness, the source of your awareness itself. And when you're there, you don't know what time it is. There's no other because it's a fusion of you, the subject, and that which you're paying attention to, the mantra, the object. And there's a fusion and there's no separation between you and anything else. So it's just you, and then the chimes sound, or I say something, or you have a thought and you surface up to the top. And then you start your practice again, you come back down. And you might have thought, what time is it? Because you're releasing stress, and that's usually the thoughts we have. And then it comes back down because you say your mantra again. And you just keep doing this until you dwell more and more into that stillness. And the thing is, no matter how many times you've been meditating, you're still going to have thoughts. You're still going to have emotions. You're still going to have a life that you need to process. And yet you are going to be more comfortable with the fluctuations of the mind and the body and the emotions. You just get much more used to it. And it doesn't call you out of the meditation so much. You're just more like, oh, thank you for sharing. And then you go back. You realize you're tired and canceled a dinner date after the meditation. Good for you. Self-love, Pauline. Self-love. Take a rain check. Say, I really want to, but I'm so tired. I love that. Okay, what else? The choice point. This is really important in meditation, and I didn't bring it up before meditation, but I think it's essential, is to recognize that you will have discomfort, whether it's your heart palpitations, whether it's an emotion you're feeling, whether it's some physical sensation, whatever it may be, there is a choice point and you always have a choice. And the choice is based on you and your integrity, not mine, not anyone else's. So let's say you've got a sharp pain in your leg. I used to have my feet fall asleep in meditation. Unfortunately, I was not in a place where you could get up and walk around, because in Zen, you don't move. And sometimes, and you've heard, some of you have heard this story, the mice would jump off the rafters and run across my lap. I was not given these choices, but here they are. 1, you can explore the sensation. What is this heart palpitation? What is this? What does it feel like? Not why. There's no why involved. But what is this? What is the source of this pain in my knee? What is this? What is the tears? What are the tears? Just really being with, exploring it, allowing it to be, not coming up with a story, but allowing it to be. You can also, if this is in your integrity, which it would be in mine, if I had so much pain in my knee and I wasn't allowed to move, I ignore it for a while, right? You ignore it and you go back to your mantra. That's your integrity sometimes. And other times you can move. I'm going to open my eyes. I'm going to stop this meditation. I'm going to scratch an itch. I'm going to move my leg so it's no longer asleep. So you always have a choice to ignore it, explore it, or move. And I recommend that you try them, you know, like with the pain, if you have pain, where does that actually begin in my knee? What is the origination point of it? Where is that? What does pain actually feel like if I didn't use the label pain? Is it hot? Is it cool? Is it sharp? Is it soft? Is it? So you can really spend a little time moving toward discomfort. You can ignore it, or you can move. So I think it's important to recognize it's all up to you, depending on your integrity that day. Some days you're going to want to really go into it, and other days you're just like, I'm doing my mantra. Now, if the mantra comes to you outside of meditation, please do not pay attention to it. Please do not pay attention to it. It just favor your activity. When the mantra is in meditation, you favor the mantra, not the activity. Outside of meditation, you favor the activity. You just see it. So here are the movements we talked about: movements of the mind, movement of the emotions, and movements of the body. Just don't stop meditating because you're distracted by thoughts. Instead, stay with the practice. Come on back again and again and again and again, and they go like this. Come on back again, again, again. This is what changes your ability to pay attention. Is to say, oh, I'm drifted off. Come on back. Oh, there's the elephants. Interest in the flowers. Come on back. Again, again, again. Movements of emotions can occur, and they usually don't last long. They usually don't last long, but if they need to, they will. Don't need to get all worked up about it. And then movements of the body, you can acknowledge them and then return to the practice. All of that stress release. And then we talked about sleep. People fall asleep in meditation if they're sleep deprived. If you were sleeping, your awareness would be dull. And you also access that deep rest. And I love that picture. Let's see here. And transcendence. We'll talk about it again because I know people don't really get it. A lot of people think this is the goal in meditation, and perhaps it is. However, you cannot make it happen by trying to make it happen. This is happening because of grace. So in life, we experience those 3 states of awareness and a transcendence. It can be called Atma Darshan, keeping the company of your own soul. It can be called meditation consciousness. It can be called soul consciousness. So it can be transcendental consciousness. So transcendence is slipping into the gap or experiencing the direct experience of that which is looking through your eyes. That beauty, that perfection, that clarity, that wholeness, that presence that we call the real you. It's the experience of being, because there's no doer. The doing happens when there's a fluctuation. Suddenly the subject-object split's happening and you are watching or you are saying your mantra, but in the middle of it, because of grace, I would say, because of the effortless practice, you would have that transcendence. We talked a little bit about new normal and expanded awareness. So some of you have been meditating a while. As you continue to now have this going back and forth into the 4 states of consciousness, not just the top 3, but as you're adding this 4th state of consciousness, you will find your edges start to soften, and you start to feel like you're in this world and not of it as you become a witness to a lot of things. You're not as involved in the drama, and you awaken to the more synchronicities and the wonder of being, and you feel that connection to everyone. These are signs that you might be on the right path. It's an expanded awareness. And yeah, you start to recognize there's more to life than meets the eye. So it's a great benefit, but one I shouldn't really talk about, except for that it can happen. Has anyone had some expanded awareness experiences since meditating? And usually they occur after the meditation. If you have, I invite you to either share them or put them in the chat. Oh, here we go. Desires in meditation. I want that pie. My dog's on the ground and she wants to, she's right here. She loves to meditate, but she's ready to go outside. So excuse me for a minute. Desires in meditation, what are they? And do you use them in meditation? There you go, honey. What are they? Are they real? Are they accidental? We talked in the beginning about what the first ingredients of meditation is. One is your willingness to do it, your resolve, your intention. Desires are not accidental. Maybe they're habitual, like this dog and the pie, but they're not accidental. Uh-oh. Excuse me for 1 second. Your desires are informed by maybe your soul. And though we don't pay any attention to them in the meditation, they inform your meditation. They inform your meditation. So, for instance, you all paid attention to your intention when you came here today. And that intention informs your meditation, whether you bring it to mind or not. So I want to just invite you to put your attention back on your intention that you had today. What was it? And if you want to, for a moment, imagine that you already have what you want. Just imagine that you already have what you want. I always like to do that practice because sometimes it can seem so out of reach. And you kind of cultivate it inside, even in your imagination. But attention enlivens your intention, which is information. And we call this the seed practice, simple, easy, every day. But truthfully, you're planting a seed. Your intention is the seed. It already has all the intelligence it needs to be made manifest, just like a seed does. All it needs is that support of nature, and meditation will give you that. Now, you don't think about your intention throughout the meditation. You can bring your attention to it in the beginning. And if you want to, in the integration period, you can bring your attention to it afterwards, just doing what we just did. Imagine I already have everything I desire. So you can practice for that feeling of fulfillment if nothing else is a benefit. But each meditation, whether you actually pay attention or not, is informed by that initial desire you have to meditate, whether it's to find love or to be held or to feel whole or to feel connected to God or to be healthy. So here we go. You can ask at the start of meditation like we did, what's my heart's desire? You can focus on it if you want by letting your attention rest on that in the beginning. Or here we go. Spend a few minutes right as you start the practice or after, imagining that your desires are manifest. And here, the new normal, I've been referring to this, and I know it's a television show maybe, but really and truly, it is a new way of being when you add that new state of consciousness every day into your life. It's where you develop more tone in your nervous system so you can go from fight or flight to rest and digest more easily. It's your ability to slow down and to pay attention on purpose to what is important to you and to savor your life more. It's also an ability to be more compassionate and not so dramatic and getting involved in other people's dramas. And it really helps you to become much more attentive and established in that mindful, non-judgmental, connected awareness. So you might notice it. I mean, some of you have already been meditating for a while, and maybe some of you have noticed some of that. Would anyone like to share? I'm reading some of the chat. I love some of these. Karen says, I've usually towards the end of the meditation, once you learn to be kind to yourself when you have thoughts, and I started the path of having moments of transcendence. That's right. All of those essentials, and I think you could probably say them now. Thoughts are okay. Be kind to yourself. Don't try too hard. Have a beginner's mind as you let go of expectations and stick with the practice. Those essentials are what pave the way for you to dive into that big pool of love, that big field or ocean of love. And it's really, that's what I call it. Some people would call it the field of pure awareness or pure consciousness or the gap. And come on out with the qualities of it. That's what creates the new normal. So here are some guidelines. We don't have much time left, but I want to share with you some basic takeaways. Some of you already have this. Make meditation a priority. Just like you make checking your email a priority, make eating and brushing your teeth a priority, and incorporate it into your daily routine. I like to use the analogy of brushing my teeth because I do brush my teeth every day, a few times a day, and I'm not always looking for a fabulous experience. It makes me feel better right away. Sometimes it's really enjoyable, and I know it's really good for me in the long run, just like meditation. Do it a couple of times a day. Don't wait for some fascinating experience, although sometimes you'll get one, and you know it's good for you in the long run. So meditate 10 to 30 minutes a day. I always do at least 20. My husband does 45. Sometimes when I'm meditating with him, I try and do more. And twice a day, every day. And meditate on an empty stomach. Find that spot where you'll be relatively undisturbed. Ideally, the same place every day if it's possible, because you'll start getting a sort of a energetic vibe there, and so will everybody else. They'll want to sit in your seat. Predetermine the amount of time you're going to meditate for before you start. And find a way to time yourself that is not going to alarm you. No alarms. No alarms. No kitchen timers, no alarms. If you want, you can use a silent sort of the vibration on your phone, or you can use a timer from Insight Timer, but do not alarm yourself, because remember that integration period is key. Take your time coming out of the meditation center and never judge your experiences in meditation based on anything. Just know that you did it with those 5 essentials. Be kind to yourself. And even if you felt like it was rough in there, recognize it's good for you. And we talked about the mantra, use it only in daily meditation, and then practice mindfulness in your daily activity, inviting that mindful attention into your activity, and remembering if you're stressed out to use those peace finder practices. And if you want to, I know some of you already have a study buddy or an accountability partner, but if there's someone on this call that you felt a sort of an affinity with, even if it's just through something they said or the way they look or where they live, feel free to reach out to them in the private chat here and ask for an accountability buddy. Maybe someone you connect with on a daily basis, weekly basis, monthly basis, just to see how it's going. And lastly, the purpose of meditation is to have a better life, one where you are relaxed and responsive and engaged, rather than reactive and tense and disengaged, as so many people are. So it's while you're being mindful and living mindfully that you're alert to the aha moments and connected, and makes life so much more meaningful. So would anyone like to ask a question or say something before we bring our program to a close today? I've had such a good time with you, and thanks for dealing with the interruptions with the electricity going out, my dog needing to go out. Anyone have anything they'd like to share? Oh, thank you, Audra. Yes. Thank you. I'll read it in case someone's listening to this as a recording. Meditating for 6 years, much less reactive, so much more self-aware. I've always been expressive, but much more emotionally intelligent now. Yes, it does develop that EQ, that emotional intelligence quotient, and so much more compassionate to yourself and others. A feeling grounded and connected that you didn't feel before. Oh, I'm so glad to hear that, Audra. I love hearing that. It works. You know, I keep experiencing new benefits all the time. I'm really working on emotional intelligence these days and doing that RAIN practice. Recognize that I'm having an emotion instead of blowing myself off. Allowing it to be there, not adding insult to injury, pretending it's not there. Investigating, where do I feel it in my body? How does it make me react? And being kind to myself. Thank you, Shona. Thank you, Nancy. Thank you so much. I want to end with a quote. Does anyone have a question before we do that? Okay. Well, my favorite quote, and some of you know this, is by the man who wrote the Tao Te Ching, Lao Tzu. And it's because I really do want peace on this planet. I know World Peace Day was just the other day. And he said, in order to have peace in the world, there must be peace between nations. In order to have peace between nations, there must be peace in the cities. In order to have peace in the cities, there must be peace between neighbors. In order to have peace between neighbors, there must be peace in the home. In order to have peace in the home, there must be peace in the heart. So may you find peace in your heart. May you be able to maintain your practice, sustain your practice, and may all those benefits we've been talking about be your wellspring. So thank you for joining me today. I'm going to stop the recording. And if you have something you'd like to share or say afterwards, I invite you to do that.